Good morning.
Christian is with us. Can you hear us?
I think he's muted his mic, is he? Oh, no, there he is.
Oh, dear. At least you can grow corals. IT, no good. Anyway.
One in the kettle there, I think.
Morning. Sonny's going to be with us shortly, everybody, because bless him, he's in Michigan in the US of A, and it is 5 o'clock in the morning at the minute. So he's going to be joining us probably halfway through the stream to answer everybody's questions, and so we can get into a bit of content with him, which we're all obviously looking forward to. So, good week so far. Good weekend, gentlemen. Anything to report?
I'll let you go first, Christian.
Fantastic week.
Okay.
Fantastic. Got some new Australian acros I'm very excited about. I actually got first pick at the wholesaler. So I rushed down the night before, stayed in a hotel, got there nice and early, peered around the car park when I arrived, thanked the Lords that there was no other vans in there, and I thought they're mine. Camped next to the front door until they let me in, and then that's it. Rinsed them out. So yeah, I got some nice Aussie acros. Very happy with those. It's my first chance in about 18 months to get some decent ones, to be fair. But yeah, some pucker bits in QT now, so I'm excited about that.
Is it? Can I just ask? Because I get this impression, because I've not been. I would love to go for the experience. Is it like sort of January sales at Next, where people like sit outside from like 4 o'clock in the morning, or am I getting that mixed up? Please explain.
Not so much anymore. Like in the good old days, it kind of used to be. And honestly, you have to be ready for a fight when you went to pick up corals in the old days, because you see all the light faces. Do you know what I mean? And some people, you see their face and you drop, and some people see you and their faces drop. But it's literally, it was like PM Aquatics. The days are there. It was a free for all, and if you're all right. But like everyone would be like scurrying around the same tanks, looking for the same stuff, and they'd be like, "Oh, give me a chance, mate." And I'm like, "No, it's fair game. This, get out of my way." You know, it's like a lot of elbow barging, shoulder barging. It helps to be. Well, no, well, there's a few occasions where it's been a bit like that, and people have got their nose out of joint because they couldn't get a look in. But that's the name of the game, mate. Get up early.
So if you get there, and just hypothetically, I'm assuming you can't just put your hand in your tank. You know, it's not like a grocery store where you're putting apples in a carrier bag or whatever in a basket. How does it work?
Well, it is kind of like that. No.
Is it? Right. Okay.
It's making out it's worse than it was. It wasn't like that at all. You know, everyone's getting on. But, you know, there's a little friendly bit of competition. It'd be like, look, so you take a tray, you pick up a tray or a bucket or whatever it is, and you go to the tank. Once it's out of that tank and in your tray, it's yours, right? So the idea is you fill these trays as quick as possible. And it is like supermarket sweep, you know? And once it's in your tray, it's yours. So you're eyeing up everybody else's trays thinking, have you got that, you jammy git? You know? And
but if it's in your tray, can you put it back again if you don't want it?
Yes.
So or are you committing?
It's in your tray, it's yours, right? But if you don't like it, put it back. So it's literally put your hands in, take everything out.
Scoop everything up, and then just pick out what you want.
It can be like that, yeah. It can be like that.
Oh, dear. That's mental.
Competition
That's mental.
It gets your juices going. But honestly, if you're late or you're procrastinating, you're talking to a member of staff, you've wasted your trip. You need to be straight in, grab the corals. That's it.
And do you do the whole, is it orange, last question, so we're going off topic here. Is it the whole orange glasses, can I have the blues on, please? Or is everything just, you literally have to take a chance on it because of the I don't know, the species or the growth pattern or whatever?
I've always took my orange glasses to the wholesalers. Always. And I've got a blue torch now because the lighting isn't great at the wholesalers.
That's interesting.
It's not the best. So I'm there with the orange glasses, looking a prize clown. But I don't care. I know what I'm looking for.
Is that before you put them on or after?
Always.
Yeah, always. Like Elton John, that guy.
Should see my shoes.
That's it.
But yeah, you can always see a bit of something in it. Even if they've got a load of brownies where people have just left and they've been there deteriorating for a month or so, you can just see something in the polyps, mate. You know, when you've got I think once you've got
the eye, yeah.
You know what you're looking for. You think, oh, that's going to turn into this or that's going to turn into that. The trick is not buying what you've bought before, because obviously you were enticed into buying it because it looked bright and shiny. And if you're not careful, I've done it in the end, come away from the wholesalers with a load of stuff I already had in the farm, you know, and it's like, oh, no, pick something else. So, yeah, you get the hang of it. But they'll be confused. They'll be leaving that. Oh, I've got it. You know, for other shops, it's different because they're taking it just to sell. So,
how many times have you put your hand on a coral and somebody's put their hand on the same one at the same time? Is it literally, does it get a bit feisty?
Mate, I just growl, mate. Just growl.
I can imagine. Okay, fair enough.
Back.
So you've got some Aussie acros. So what's the scope of the Aussie acros then? They're going to go into your QT for how long? What's the average? What's the normal time frame? My
minimum QT is about 3 months because I've seen nasties come out of otherwise healthy looking corals after 2.5 months. I had this piece of window on a big window shipment I had, and it was it wasn't the nicest coral, but it was the nicest in terms of vitality and health, right? Really nice base on it. Obviously cut the base well away and encrusted down lovely. And I thought, wow, I can't believe how well this coral's doing. And then 2.5 months into it, I saw this little tiny trail of little tiny aquaporin eating flatworm bites, but they weren't your standard aquaporin eating flatworms. I thought, this is a bit dodgy. So I took it in the back and I dipped it, and out came this hammerhead slug that moved at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It was about 3 or 4 mil long, and it was like a perfect like shaped dome like that, and then weird. That was his head, and I did, for the life of me, I didn't know what it was. So that just went straight in the bin, you know. And then all the other acros got a very good inspection afterwards. I didn't find any more, but then the quarantine started again. I just didn't want to take any chances adding those to the table. So that quarantine was like 5 months.
Wow.
You know, cages. So I say 3 months minimum. For me, I've never seen anything come out after 3 months that I didn't want to see.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You've got to be diligent with it, right?
Mm.
You can't just dip it, cut the base off, or scrub it, or anything like that. It's just, there's so many things living like inside, and so many minuscule things. Like, it just might be locked into the corallite, you know. So, yeah,
interesting. No, cheers for that. So you've got some Aussie acros that you're happy with. So fingers crossed. You're going to come up with some crazy names, or is that the fun? Is that the fun bit?
Yeah, I don't know. We've got that many names now. Normally, it's a last minute thing. We'll see.
Oh dear, we'll see.
Maybe
Josh,
we'll do some in the chat.
Yeah, definitely. Josh, anything happening this week with you? Anything to report?
Wide of life, not necessarily much going on. I've managed to get an ICP away for the Reef, which hopefully will identify any remaining issues that I've had going on with instability. Obviously, I've mentioned in the past that I've had the changeover from modern Reef or to modern Reef. The loss of fish, so we've had to adjust how we do the nitrogen and phosphorus maintenance. So we changed that a little bit. I've started the Easy Reefs. I've got the Easy Booster, which is I think what you are using on yours. And I've also got the SPS Evo. They're on doses, and they're dosing at like really small increments throughout the day. I think I've got about 12 increments throughout the day. So little and often. And the corals are probably looking better now in terms of like polyp extension than they ever have done. So hopefully we're moving. I'm getting growth tips on a lot of things again, which is nice to see. So hopefully we're moving in the right direction. New pH probe's just gone on as well on the Profilux, so that'll hopefully keep a better eye on things. I noticed it sort of wandering around a little bit too often, so I thought I'll change it out. And we've had some pretty accurate readings now. I did a calibration test. Well, not a test. I just dipped it in the calibration solution last night just to see what it was giving me, and it was giving me bang on the number. So
good. Hopefully
we're in a good ballpark, but when that ICP comes back, we'll know better.
Happy days. Good stuff. I've seen I saw a big difference with that Evo stuff. It's good. Easy boost, easy reefs. It's good. Good stuff. Bit pricey, but yeah, worth buying.
Yeah.
And you can, like you say, you can dose it without having it in the fridge, which is good.
Yeah.
I've not really got much to report. I had when you have one of these days when you look at it, I was saying this to Drip the other day, when you have one of these days when you look at your tank and it's banging and you're like, why can't it be like that every day? And then like the day after it was good, but not as good as that particular day. And I'd love to know what made the tank look not showroom standard, but it looked good. And I was like, I said to him on the phone, I was like, you spend so much time in this hobby dealing with the negatives or the crap, shall I say, or the frustrations of trying to, all this effort. And then you very rarely get much time to actually enjoy the success. If I make, well, I don't. I'm probably a glass half empty kind of guy. But do you know what I mean? I think it was a bit of a shock. I was like, everything's actually looks really good. I'd just love to know why today and not every day. But anyway, so
here today, gone tomorrow.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, everything looks good, but it just looked even better. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So anyway. But no, nothing really to report for me. I need to do a water change, but I've cut my water changes down as per Christian's advice to 2 weeks, and it helps my bank balance out as well, rather than every week. So, but no, nothing other than that. Right, like I say, for everybody that's just joined us, we're still going to be waiting for Sonny. It is going to be 5:15 in the morning over in Michigan, so he's going to be joining us hopefully around 11 o'clock mark. So keep an eye out for him in the studio and add him when he joins us. So let's jump into the chat and say hello to everybody that's made the effort this Sunday morning to join us. Morning, Ron. Morning, guys. Hopefully, we'll be able to make stream safe for kids. Yeah, and just while we're on the subject, we're just rotating, as I put in the subject of today's stream and on Instagram. We're going to be rotating the faces because we are wary that 5-6 people can be a little bit too much when people start talking over each other. And I want to add some fresh faces as well in the next few months as well to keep rotating it. So, but morning, Ron. Hope you're having a good weekend, mate. John Boy, what can I say? I have your China mug. It's a very nice mug that you gave me at Aqua. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, sir. It is getting used. Christian's slightly jealous.
It's a better word. Envious is a better word than jealous, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But morning, John. Hope you're well. Gaza, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. Leroy, morning. And we've got UK 120. Thanks for joining us. Who else have we got? Scotty Boy's here. Morning, Scott. Hope you're well. Not spoke to you in a bit. Not seen you for a while. Hope your tank's doing well, mate. Liam, another avatar. You're spending some time on these avatars. You must have an app. But no, what's that one? It's got a little cartoon shark. Very nice.
I've got to be honest.
And yeah, congratulations on your new tank, because we don't need to keep going over old news, but he's happy. He's on the happy bus now with his tank. So yeah, hats off to you, mate. I hope it's going in the right direction. Morning, Rama. Nice to meet you, Aqua. A nice to put a face to the avatar. Hope you're well. Dave, behave with that. We're going to talk about your toys in a minute, actually. Behave. Morning, Dave. Thanks for joining us. This time last week, we were talking about, well, we'd done, I think we'd just finished breakfast, hadn't we, at the hotel, Christian? Will you behave, please? Yes. Come on.
Sorry, I'm listening.
And for those that don't know, Dave is an absolute superstar at go-karting. He was like a whippet, and yeah, he took pole position. He won. So well done again, Dave. There's a little bit of that to him being a motorbike enthusiast as well, I think. But anyway, what else we got?
We went go-karting and setting the scene, right? There was a guy who turned up with his own helmet, right? And we all had to type our names in, so it gives you like a leaderboard on screen, and you could have your picture taken. Well, this guy took a picture of his helmet, and he was called the Bulldog, and this guy meant business. He was serious, right? Anyway, Dave lapped him.
Mate, yeah, Dave lapped him. Yeah.
Back go-kart, kick the wheel, kick the tire. Oh,
he wasn't happy, was he? He wasn't an happy bunny now. He was entertaining for us, though. Really entertaining.
So well done, Dave. Yep.
Yes, well done, Dave. Morning, Jupers. Nice to meet you. Yeah, lovely to meet you. Hope you enjoyed Aqua. I hope you didn't spend too much, but no, it'd be nice to know a little bit more about your tank. How you getting on? See what you bought. Morning, Paul. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're well. Justin Lee. Morning. Who else have we got in the house? Here he is. Made an appearance. Good morning, all reefing squares. Hope everyone's well. Nothing better than waking up to a good old. Hey dear, set the tone for the day. Ian, morning. Thanks for joining us. And I think we are about there.
Missed you last week.
Oh no, Jay's here. Morning, Jay. Hope you're well, buddy. Let's have a look. Oh, a few more. Robert, morning. Joshua Malia. have an issue with ick in my predator tank. Can I quarantine? Right, we'll go back to that in a second. Nick, morning.
Mr. Chan. How you doing,
Mr.
mate?
Chan, nice to see you. Aqua as well. Great stand. We've got Carlos, morning. And we've got. Where's the tank background? Yes, I know. Well, the problem is when you, Christian knows what I'm talking about. When you spend the amount of time and effort setting all this up, it isn't the kind of thing you can just fold away and put it in a drawer in 5 minutes. So it's a right faff, putting it bluntly, setting it up and taking it down. So I decided to redo the office upstairs and turn it into more of a sort of studio-like sort of setup, so I can literally jump in here and start recording stuff. And hopefully, if I can work my magic with my missus of 15 years, I can get a nano behind me. That is the plan. But I have got 2 tanks and the electric bill is rather high. So it's going to take some Louis Vuitton at Christmas to maybe clinch that deal. So, yeah. Sorry, Christian. I'm not going to buy any sticks. I'm going to buy an handbag so I can buy a tank. And then I can put sticks in. So anyway, but no, that's why I'm upstairs. But I'm going to put some artwork up. So, yeah, I'm going to try and get some decent artwork. I might get some chaise art or something on the back wall. Anyway, that tank build looks rubbish. Yes, thanks, Robert. Who else have we got in? Anybody else I've missed out? I've just seen Haley. Morning, Haley. Nice to see you. Not seen you for a bit. Hope you're well. And we've got Hurren's Reef. Morning, Hurren's Reef. And I think we are pretty much there. If I missed anybody, I do apologise. And again, like always, if anybody jumps in, I will try and make a shout out for you. So, Christian, over to you for a second.
Yes.
Do you want to show us your toys now before you just irritate me throughout the show with random sound effects, like I know you're going to do. So, do you want to show us what you've been working on? Because you weren't here last week. Oh no, Aqua was last week. Sorry, I tell a lie. The week before with Leo, because you were smashing it up. You've managed to sellotape, blue tack, whatever you've done to get it kind of working. So come on,
blue tack and a lollipop stick sorted.
Come on, give us some samples.
Well, we've got
what we got.
We got that one.
Yeah, we've got Mr. Chips. We all know what Mr.
Code, make note of you guys.
Oh, this is all from Drippy as well. Anyway, yeah,
we know Tom's Mr. Chips, right? Because he's all body and string legs and string arms.
And string legs, yeah.
So, well, just say, ask me a question.
Ask you a question.
Ask me a question.
What was your highlight of Aqua last week?
Seeing everybody there.
Oh, Josh, just ignore it. Sorry, just have to ignore it.
Is that correct?
Come on, and yes, that was the correct. That was a good answer. A good answer. Come on, what else have you got? Let's get this over and done with, so we can get chatting Reef.
Yeah, come on, let's chat Reef. I'm done. There we go.
No more.
No, just give me a right answer.
Give you a what? Sorry.
Just give me a correct answer.
I'll give you a correct answer. The highlight of my weekend at Aqua was getting together with everybody.
That's a correct answer.
Let's have a look at the Right. Okay.
Yeah,
right. Have you got that? Have you got that out of your system now?
Yes. It's all done.
Right. Okay. He's so proud of himself. I do apologise.
Really excited.
Right. Come on.
Yeah.
What's happening at Signature Frags at the minute? Come on, talk to us.
So, around this time last year, we did some frag packs, some discounted frag packs, heavily discounted. It's a bit of fun. So it's a chance for me to create what I think is a really nice frag pack. And we do those at like a added discount. And I've done a few this week. And what I've given people the opportunity to do is choose 6 or more frags, any ones you want. Let me know what they are, and we'll give you a bit of an extra discount on it. It's limited. I could probably do a few more. If I really like the look of the pack, then I'm quite happy to do it. So put some thought into it. But yeah, the idea is put your own frag pack together and you can get a better discount than on the website. So maybe 20%, 25% off. Inbox me, tell me what you like. Yeah, and if you come in store, maybe we could do something a bit better. All right, so that's going to happen. I haven't had that much time to make the frag packs this week through various other commitments. So we're going to put a lot more curated ones together. But if you want to build your own, now's your opportunity. So that's it, basically. So that's been a bit of fun. Just keeps things a bit different here, right?
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Right, let's talk about Aqua then, because I know that there's been lots of videos, and I don't want to bore people because everybody's probably like that. They're more interested in looking at the next one or the next meet. What? So you didn't come, Josh. Too far for you then? You're in, obviously.
Yeah.
You're Sunderland. Too far for you? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit of a trek for me. I think I was at work as well, so a combination of the two meant that it was out of reach for me. So, but you know, if it's if there was something going a little bit closer, there's no doubt I'd definitely get down to it. But it was just a little bit on the cusp, I think, a little bit too far.
Okay, but you do one if there was one a bit up north. So we need to look
definitely,
at something, don't we? Yeah. Okay. Christian, then we said getting together. What else did you like? Come on, you're a coral farmer. What did you make of it?
This is quite controversial, but I like the fact, and I'll probably get shot by a lot of other shops for saying this. There's home sellers there selling their coral, selling their wares next to some of the more, well, there wasn't that many shops selling corals, was there, to be fair? But I just think it was a nice mix of the environment, because in the States you've got everyone doing it, right?
Yeah.
Everyone rocks up to Reefer Palooza, and you could have some nobody sat next to worldwide corals, holding their own, just selling whatever corals. So I thought that was really cool. I really enjoyed that, and certainly the engagement from all the shops that went, who didn't necessarily show, and the ones I've been speaking to this week who are saying, "Yep, we're definitely going to get involved next year." So if they go ahead next year, the vendors selling corals are going to go through the roof.
Yeah,
it's going to be a must visit event, even if it's a little bit difficult to get here. It's a must see it or miss out. Really, I think next year is going to be amazing. So
yeah, me too.
That for me was my highlight, I guess. It's nice seeing the brands interact directly with the consumer. I think that's important. There's a lot of engagement. I know there's a lot of decisions being made by consumers this week to take the dive into new methods off the back of that. I don't know if you saw that Ocean Sea Wave. They
I did 850 units. Wow.
I mean, what is so congratulations.
Yeah, definitely congrats.
No, so it's good opportunity to get some visibility for the smaller guys like that. So fantastic event. Was it perfect? No, but for a first event, it's a bloody good notch in the headboard. It's something to build on. Yeah, amazing show.
Yeah, it was good location, I thought, as well. Facility wise, site wise, parking, all that. I mean, I know it was that busy. We had to park like wherever we did and have a bit of a trek, but it was all definitely accessible. No leaky roofs and blocked toilets and all that sort of thing, and fight for a car park. So I thought it was good.
Well, and all credit to Nick for putting it on and his organisers, Reese and Mackenzie. I mean, they really pulled it out of the bag, and there's a lot of pressure, a lot of unknowns there. A lot of new ground to conquer, but they pulled it off. Yeah, what a shame. Well done, guys.
Cool. Yeah, it was. To be fair, like you said a minute ago, I was just walking around talking to people. I didn't even look in any tanks. Well, I looked in a few, but so you think if well, I'll put you on the spot. You're going to be doing it next year?
If I don't mess up my corals before the event, yes, yeah, and I'm going to get some super duper sized pieces ready, some more rare and exclusive bits ready, especially for the show. So I think, yeah, I'll do some show exclusives, which will be nice. So yeah, I plan to do it. I know yourself, you might be helping me out, and I'm going to do a few trial runs. So just load everything, get some equipment, load it up in the van, and drive around for a few hours and set it back up at the shop and just see how it pans out.
We should just do random stalls, like at a market stall, just randomly. Like, where will signature frags appear this weekend in a car park near you? Oh dear. Fair enough. Right, let's just jump into the comments. We are now. Sonny just texted me, so he thinks he's just having his cornflakes or coffee or whatever he's doing, so he shouldn't be long before he's with us. Let's have a look. He's only gone and got a new hat. Yes, I have this, and I think Jay got a t-shirt as well. Did you get one, Christian, in the end from Joe?
Shirt.
You did, right? Okay. Yeah, big shout out to Joe. Usually on the Friday night stream, and she's recently been to to Florida on holiday and went to WWC and bought a load of merchandise for me and some of the guys, which was very kind of her. We obviously paid her. We'll sort out some flowers, I think, to her. 'Cause, been after something like this for a while. That's dedication. I want a WWC hat. Yeah, you try and get one online. Absolute nightmare. Anyway, right. So, what's Scott saying? Still got my Gonny prize. Must be 12 inches now.
Yeah, I
Really?
fragged it, mate.
Oh, yeah, he needs to come and get it. Is that right? He's not been down to get it yet. He won it on the Friday, I think, didn't he, a couple of months ago? Is that right?
Yeah, got them good to go, Scott. So whenever you're ready, mate, get yourself down.
Right, okay.
I know you're busy with all your handyman stuff, aren't you? Getting the pennies in. So, yeah, whenever you're busy, mate, it'll be lovely.
Drippy's talking about you being referred to as Bowser on the go-karting because you weren't very happy, were you, towards the end?
What, because I wasn't happy? I was happy. I had a great time. I thought it's more because I'm a heavy set and I just looked like I was melting over the sides of the seat. Honestly,
Oh, dear.
went the opposite
Oh,
direction.
dear.
Jesus. Dave, the racing body, built for speed. He's like, just lean into the corners, Christian. I thought I am doing. And I wasn't going the way I was steering. So the first car was better than the second. The second one just went straight into the sides, mate. I did half that stuff, yeah. So
were we on for about 15 minutes first and then a break? And then is it 15 minutes, something like that? It felt like forever. The first time felt like forever.
It was enough. It was enough, I feel.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah, my arms the next day. Wow.
Yes, definitely. What else can we talk about, Christian? Anything else in the pipeline with Signature? Anything up your sleeve? Anything now? When are the new coral trays going to be up and running? Because every time I go in, I'll look at them and think, what are you going to put in there?
The trouble with new coral trays is the amount of bloody equipment you need to put on them. And without a benefactor and a mortgage to balance and things like that, start to get in. Things have to just come as and when they come. So it's very much organic growth. So hopefully in the next month we'll have the trays finished. Next 2 months we'll have the pumps, we'll have them running, and we'll get some lights above them. So I think we're going to start the 8-footer with 6 halides, which will be interesting.
Nice.
There's this theory with halides and not getting dyno. If I'd like to explore. So something to do with like the UV in them, the spectrum. So I'm going to try cycling the tanks and maturing them with the halides and just see it, and then introducing the LEDs slowly. Certainly, what I noticed with the old tables is I started them with halides and then I switched over to LEDs, and within 2 weeks of switching to LEDs, it was dinoflagellates everywhere.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, Jason's Aquatics, he was having this discussion with me, and it's his theory that it's to do with the halides. This is why everyone these days is getting these weird kind of algae blooms and dinoflagellate blooms. So I think there's credit to his theory. So I'm just going to explore that a little bit more. So maybe a couple of months on the new tables. It's always exciting, mate. We've all got something in the pipeline. You'll see some of the more special frags I've been previewing this week. We've got a lot more to come. So that's going to keep people on their toes. Yeah.
Nice. Right then, let's have a look. What else we've got? Nick, thanks everybody that came to see me at Aqua Show. Yeah, nice to see you, Nick. Hope you got some sales. I got teased with the Trident, not the Trident, it is the Trident MP with Steve though. FX, he says you can buy this one. Just gave me a box and it was empty, frustratingly for me, because I don't know whether I would put on the spot. I would have actually bought it, but I'm curious to know when we can get his hands on one of those. Are you going to bother with anything like that in the farm? Anything? Thinking?
15 minutes for a phosphate test. So
right, okay.
By hand. So not really, mate. I've got my alkalinity. The thing with all this equipment, it's really good when it works, right? And I'm sure it's going to work fantastically. But it's how much time do you have to put into it when it doesn't work? And then what does that take you away from? When you're a single person yourself, my partner, thank you, Louise, times, but you just haven't got the time to maintain everything. So it's much easier just to stay manual, I think.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Where did you come, Drippy? I thought you would be on the podium. Yes, he was. He was there. Look at him doing his little dance. Yeah, David first, Jack second, and Drippy third. And all he did, and all he's continued to do since last weekend, is remind me that he beat me. So anyway, yes, thanks for that. Yeah, but no, everybody enjoyed themselves. It was a good weekend. Sonny is going to be with us literally momentarily, it says. Let's have a look. Anything else we've got to talk about before we wait, while we're waiting for him?
I think Rama asked me a question earlier on, but I've tried to find it in the comments, but I've not got it there now. I'm sure he asked me about fish again. So Rama, if you did ask about fish, put it back in, and I'll try to answer it for you.
Yeah, cool. We've got. Did I see that? Coral Essentials Europe in the house. Morning. Thanks for joining us. If you haven't already heard, our guest is with us momentarily. He's just sent me a message saying it's actually him that's got the time wrong, so he apologises to everybody waiting to listen from Sonny. But he's going to be literally in the next couple of minutes, so hopefully we can start, like I said, getting on with the questions. Are you? Oh, there's the AAC in October, Christian. You coming to that one?
Yeah, I'm looking forward.
Freaks, yeah.
Yeah, well, Paul's putting this on. He's got all these guests from America, hasn't he? So, no, I think it's going to be good for the hobby. Anything that's good for the hobby, I'll be there to support. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Good on him for putting it together. So, yeah, excited about it. I think the festivities the night before will also be a lot of fun. Yeah, I wouldn't miss it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yes, they're always fun and entertaining on the Jolly Boys outings, I must admit. There's always something to talk about. What was that? What was other than the go-karting? What did we have any? Did we didn't have any? Drippy pulled, didn't he? Drippy pulled. Drippy got a number from a fine young lady, so he scored. He was happy with that. I can't think of any other gossip. No, anything you can remember? Anything that's safe to discuss? No, right, okay, not go there. All right, okay. Well, right, okay. So. Josh, I'm going to ask you again, but you're not going to come down. I'll take it to AC. Far too far for you. Not interested in the hotel.
What was the date on that?
26th, I think, of October from memory. It's around my birthday.
I'm in Iceland for that.
Are you?
So that'd be even longer journey. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I'll tell you what, though, we have next week.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Yorkshire's Duncan's little thing next week, haven't we?
Yes,
Yorkshire.
we have. Yes.
So
that's the third, isn't it? Next Thursday, this Thursday. So is that something like 6 to 8 or something like that from memory? 6 p.m. and that's a Yorkshire meat gathering. So, I've not been there.
The 3rd of October from 6:30 until 8:30.
Right.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here without our customers, so we think it's time you got to know each other. Pop in for our social evening next month and get to know reefers local to you. There we go. Yeah. That's a nice little event as well, isn't it? So definitely go along and support Duncan with that.
So are you still coming to that? And then we're picking Leroy and Timothy up, the Yorkshire Raver.
Yeah, I believe
Wakefield
so. Leroy's over here in the morning. So, yeah.
Yeah, he did say that.
Pop over. I need to catch up with him. He's going to help me with my Apex because he's an expert and I'm not.
All right, okay. Ramasini did ask about the fish. I think is this for you, Josh, about why you've got no fish?
Yeah.
Or right, okay.
I think that's what it was. I think I mentioned it 2 weeks ago when we were on. I've definitely got some sort of. I don't think it's a parasite. I think it's maybe a bacterial infection.
Right.
That every time I seem to be adding fish, even though I've quarantined fish prior to, I must have made a mistake somewhere, or potentially something's coming on a coral or an invertebrate. I'm not sure. But yeah, we're going to be going through a fallow period for 3 months. It's not necessarily doesn't necessarily need to be. I think it's about 72 days it needs to be, but we'll do a full 3 months just to be on the safe side, before we look at adding fish again. And then I'm going to follow Rob's tank transfer method for quarantining the fish. So hopefully, in about 3 or 4 months' time, we'll be in a better position and we can have a lot more fish swimming around behind us, because it's not just a bugbear for me, but my girlfriend isn't a fan of the lack of fish either. So yeah, we're going to try and get them stocked back up again if we can.
Keep them happy.
That's it.
Exactly that.
Not urinating. Hopefully not.
You tend to get uranium from isn't it a common one with Chromis? That.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you can get uranium out of a tank, can you? And that's a bacterial thing, I believe. I'm not a fish expert, so
no.
I'd
Rob.
like to hope that
Come on.
I'd like to hope that, you know, if it is a fish-borne parasite bacterial infection, if it hasn't got a host, I'd like to think that eventually it would die out. Which is why I'm going to go for the, you know, I think the full fallow period everyone ever recommends is 72 days, but I'm going to go for the 90 just for the sheer fact of it's going to go through an entire life cycle again. So hopefully we'll go without. But yeah, I think there was a type of bacteria that I'm sort of angling towards, and it might mean I need to go down the antibiotics route, but we'll wait and see. So it's Mycobacterium marinum. So
Right.
Rob might know a little bit more about that. But yeah, there's a potential that might be what's in the system. I'm not going into detail as to why I think that's in the system, but yeah, there's a good potential that could be what it is. So hopefully we'll get it identified. Hopefully we'll get it dealt with, and then yeah, we'll get some fish back in there, and it'll look a little bit more lively again.
So we are joined. The guest is in the house. He's in the green room at the minute. Right, let's join you. Let's join him. Sorry. Right, here we go. Hello. Good morning.
Morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning, Sonny.
I pulled the most typical American thing in the world.
How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Yeah, I'm taking you're a bit tired. Sorry.
Yeah, when you guys told me 10 GMT, I went and Googled it and didn't know you guys were +1 GMT.
All right. Okay. How big is
British
this planet
summertime.
we live on? I do apologise. Oh dear. But no, thanks for joining us, mate. I really appreciate you getting out, especially on a Sunday. Yeah, appreciate it. So you are you are somebody that I've certainly followed for a very long time. I've spoke to you a couple of times when you've done live videos. I know Josh is an avid fan. You've been in this game a long time. You look good for 25 years in reefing.
Yeah. 43 now. So yeah, I started pretty young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know that's something that Josh wanted to talk to you about. Sorry, if you don't mind giving us the background.
Yeah, been 25 years reefing. Got my first saltwater tank around 17 or 18. Had my first aquarium probably around 6, but that was freshwater. Had a few other things, you know, started out there. We had a pet store down the street, so that really helped out, you know, as a kid. Started out with some different fish, lizards, things like that. High school was my AP biology teacher, who's the one who kind of recommended it as one of my projects. He's like, hey, I've got this, you know, cool aquarium. It's clownfish, anemones. I was like, wow, what is that? And that kind of, you know, that was the bug. And I got into it from there, and there was, you know, a whole world to see after that. So that's kind of how I jumped in to start out. And then, yeah, just kind of took over from there. Started getting into that and the corals, reefing, and took off from there.
Nice, because so you have your own. I mean, you've got a great, obviously YouTube channel for anybody that hasn't already sort of subscribed to you. Let's have a look here. You've got the website, haven't you? Which is the ReefSite website, which is just full of information for anybody that wants to look at some of your videos and your methodology and some of your tips and tricks. And you've obviously done. You've been on with Keith, haven't you, from Reef Bum, which was a great watch. I've watched that one. But yeah, I mean, you really are full on, aren't you? Full on, yeah. Mr. Reef. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, is it an addiction, would you say?
Oh, yeah. I guess like most things, you get obsessed with something, you get single-minded, and you focus, and you try to hone your craft the best that you can. I mean, if you're going to do something, you know, do it right and do it the right way, and try to, you know, get a methodology. I don't know. These days, the methodology, I don't know how much it applies to most, but there's a lot of things going on and changing in the hobby. I like to keep it with the basics and focus.
So what are the basics for you then? Do you want to go into your methodology a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, my basics are, you know, God, the biggest thing and the key thing to my aquariums, and I think people have a lot, you know, gotten away from that, is the live rock, just the biology of the aquarium. You know, too many people, they just don't focus on that anymore. Everybody's, you know, the way that the aquariums are being built, lots of dead rock. They're not really focusing as much on the system itself or on the biology, and just maybe doing too much too quickly. At least that's
Okay.
kind of what I see these days. And you're having just, God, these issues that you're seeing that weren't as prevalent back in the days, such as, dinoflagellates, or even different kinds of algae that really didn't see, 15, 20 years ago in the hobby. But now it seems like it's a standard, it's a rite of passage, which doesn't make any sense anymore to me. But I think a lot of that comes down to the biology.
Definitely. So Josh, you've touched on it a little bit. So how you got a tank when you were younger then, so 17, 18. So then at what point did you start, when was the next tank and the next tank and the next tank? At what point did it become that addiction, as we all call it?
Well, it was a small tank when I was in high school, so it was probably a little nano at the time. It was 10 or 15 gallons. One that my teacher kind of built. It was a all-in-one, if you can believe that. This is back in the mid to late 90s. He had built it himself. So it was kind of a cool little system. Didn't have anything special, didn't have a skimmer, didn't have any biological filtration. It was pretty basic. I think it may have some maybe some biomedia to harness. Well, I'll take that back. It probably did have some bacteria because it did have some biomedia in there, because I know that was a thing at the time. Undergraduate filters were all the rage, but I tried that out. I'm sure if you guys have been in for a while, you probably tried that out as well. It was a bit of a nightmare using those things, but from there, just set up another tank, maybe a 29 or 30 gallon. Experiment with a few things. Lots of bad decisions from some local fish stores that shouldn't have been selling me Queen Angels for a 30 gallon.
Right. Okay.
From there, would set up a little 4-foot tank around 2003. Just kind of testing out things. Had all manner of algae problems, you name it. Just went through it all. And then eventually, it really clicked when I got, believe it was 2006. It was Tank of the Month on Reef Central. I had a 250 gallon in-wall aquarium. And that's when things kind of started to click. I started to play around with some of the bacteria. And that was a big game changer for me. Just putting in the right equipment and having the right biology in there.
This one?
Yep, that's the one.
Wow. Nice tank, man. Very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Yep.
How long did you have this one for then?
I think that one was set up for less than 2 years. That's my typical life cycle. The one I have right now is actually going on a little bit longer than I usually do have a tank set up for. So that one was fun. That was completely in wall. It was 5 feet, so 60 inches by 36 inches wide, 24 inches tall.
Yeah.
Ran with metal haloids. Had 2 of them in those giant Luminarc reflectors. Had metal haloid bulbs that I actually was able to get away with 250 watt bulbs using the XM10Ks.
Yeah, that's what it's saying here. I don't know whether if I can. Here we go. There we go. So that was your system profile. And what was this? 2006. This is what you were running.
Yeah, 2006.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so it was 225. What did I say? 250.
Wow. Calquasser as well, I see.
Yep, I had a Kalkwasser reactor, had a calcium reactor.
Wow.
Do you still use Calc these days, Sonny?
Yep, I still use Kalkwasser these days. I have it set up with my auto top off, so that works out well. Use that in conjunction with All for Reef. Things are just much easier these days with some of the things that we have. Some things change, some things don't.
Wow. Calcium reactor. Kalkwasser. T5s, Allieds.
So
Yeah, those were the actually the VHOs.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, those were right before the T5s actually came out. I remember the next tank I built up. I think that was Tank of the Month on Reef to Reef back then. That was a small 100-gallon tank, and that tank really took off with the carbon dosing, and that actually had T5s, and that was 2000. I want to say 2007, because this one here that you showed was set up around 2005 and took it down around 2007 and set up the other tank. And I remember going to T5s on that one, and man, the chorus across the forums was, you couldn't grow SPS with T5s way back then. And oh my God, I was like, all right, challenge accepted. And so
Wow.
that tank, that tank was a little bit smaller, focused a bit more. It was 100 gallons, 4-foot tank with 54-watt T5s on that. And that system came out really well. And that's when I really started to push the carbon dosing on that. Started experimenting with vodka and a few other things.
So when you say push
was
the
the-
carbon, to what extent? How do you mean?
Oh, excuse me.
Go on, Chris.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Fire again.
So when you said you're pushing the carbon dosing, to what extent? So when you said you really, really decided to push it, what? So you're running your nutrients really low, or was it very heavy import on the feed-ins?
Yeah, so in the tank that you had just shown, the in-wall system, I was messing around with some protobio little capsules they had and dumping some of that in there. But when I got to the smaller tank, I really started to push the envelope on that and reading around some of the things that were going on overseas, particularly I believe in Germany, where you were starting to see the carbon dosing scene come alive. So I started to play around with the vodka.
Yeah.
And yeah, really pushing the ultra low nutrient system, which, I mean, if you guys have done that, I mean, you're walking a fine line, fine line towards the disaster. The coral coloration was great. Coral growth took off. System looked amazing, but if you dose a little too much, you'd have that cyano slime just take over and really wreak havoc. These days I use MP Bacto Balance, and the stuff is great. Been using it for almost 4.5 years now, and haven't had a touch of slime, any issues. And it's kind of balanced out my nitrates and phosphates. So I've been very happy using it, and I believe it's I believe they derive it from algae,
Right.
the carbon source. So it's fantastic.
How often do you dose it, incidentally? Sorry, Chris. How often do you dose it, Sonny? That on your system? Is it on one system, or do you do it on more than one?
I do it on both my systems, both the main systems. I do have a small nano system as well. I don't carbon dose on that one. I just kind of stick to water changes on it. But on the 40 gallon and on this main system here, I will dose it daily. Maybe it's a heavy dose. I dose 4 milliliters on the main system and 0.5 milliliter on the smaller system. I have recently started to add not the NP Bacto, but I believe the Elimi NP. Right.
Yeah.
The version that doesn't include the other sources of nitrate and phosphate on the main system. My phosphates have been running a touch high for a while. I've done some fragging recently, and it was kind of by design with my phosphates. The system grew out in about 13 months, which was crazy. And I really been, since that time, I wanted to slow the growth down. I just, there's only so much you can frag, and then after a while, it becomes a huge hassle just to kind of maintain it if you're not, growing and selling corals.
So where are you keeping that phosphate now then to kind of slow the growth? Above 0.1?
Oh, it's pretty high. I remember when I looked it up, it was 0.9. So,
Wow.
Whoa.
yeah. And I mean, it's a little 0.9, but believe it or not, when stuff was growing and doing good, I was 0.4, 0.5. That's typically where I run. Kind of keep it pretty high.
Not
But
0.045.
yeah.
Yeah. So just for everybody listening, that's 0.9, not 0.09.
Yep. 0.9. Yeah, there's a video somewhere on
Wow.
my Instagram showing that. I got 0.9. I believe at one point it was 0.52, but then again, I don't test all that often.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. But when you do test, what do you test, and why do you test?
Alkalinity. That's typically, I'll keep an eye on pH and alkalinity. Those are the two parameters I'll kind of keep an eye on, especially when it comes for the all for reef. You want to keep an eye on the alkalinity and kind of adjust it from there. At least that's what I found. And if my alkalinity and pH isn't aligned, typically everything else is right there. And just doing it for so long, I can kind of keep an eye on things and know if my phosphates are getting to a certain point. If I start seeing that having to clean the glass much at an earlier clip than I need to usually, or if I see the coral growth and coloration, it's not a exact science. I wouldn't recommend it to most, but I've got a pretty good eye on it in my systems.
You've got, you know,
Interesting.
26-year-old eye for reefing. So there you go.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's not a playbook, is there, Sonny? There's no playbook of how to reef. It's all through your experience, mate. Yeah, there's certain things you learn and you keep in the back, keep in your pocket, but really it's all down to what you've experienced.
100%. Yeah, a lot of experience, and you know, like you said, I touched briefly on the basics, but you know, it's water flow, it's, you know, just keeping the time, setting a plan, keeping your maintenance going, and not just getting hung up about every single number. I think that's a big issue these days too. 'Cause people are testing for 80 different things in there, and they're just chasing all these numbers and just causing more and more issues for themselves.
Just going to jump to a question, sorry, on the carbon. Nick was just asking, have you compared active carbon dosing like liquid carbon additives versus the passive background buffering like Dr. Tim's Marine Pearls?
I did try years ago. It was a little resin, the pellets, and I just didn't like using them. That was something I did experiment with on the in-wall system, just because I felt like I couldn't control the dosage. I just had issues. I had slime. I had all sorts of problems with it, and that's why I ended up turning to using the vodka. Just was too hard to dial in.
A couple of other questions, sorry, while we've got you on the spot, if you don't mind. I know you're still probably waking up. What time are you on, actually? Sorry, is it 10 to 6 in the morning? Is that right?
It is.
Right?
Yeah. 05:53. Yep.
05:53. Okay.
It's
Dave, I think you have kind of touched on this, but what bacteria do you use, and have you had it tested in the lab to see if it is what they say it is built up of?
No, never tested it. I've used Microbacter in the past. More recently in this system, I've used Zeobac. So that's kind of been my bacteria of choice.
Yeah, that's what I use. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that in conjunction with the live rock. I guess the one thing that's interesting is the rock and the bacteria I have in my systems. It's been there just as long as I've been reefing. I've been really good about keeping the water from since I started that long ago. So, I mean, the bacteria or the water, the biology I have in my systems it's been through everything. Maybe that's the secret to my success. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
You're saying some of the live rock you've got now is some of the original, or has been seeded from the original?
Has been seeded from the original.
Wow.
So there's a tiny piece of live rock that has been, you know, going back to when I was in high school. I always made sure to take a piece of rock or take a piece of bacteria, take my water with me every single system I've set up. And that's typically how I've done it. I've taken whatever I could out of the system, moved it over, and, you know, pretty much had an instant reef going. And that's kind of the way it's kind of always been with me. I've tried to hold on to the water. Even years ago when I was on hiatus from the hobby when I was sick, it was a good, 3 or 4 years. We had a small little nano that just kept it alive in the system. Didn't have any fish, but, you know, we made sure to keep it alive in there. And yeah.
That's the most valuable thing. I think people don't realize that, you know, is the maturity of the rock, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people tend to have they mature a system and then they have a lot of success and they think, right, I'm going to upgrade now. And then they ditch the rock. And then their new memory of reefing is very different from their previous reef. They think they're just going to continue where they left off.
Yeah.
Right. So
right.
It is the most valuable thing, I think. And people think.
Yeah, 100%. And what I like to do with my systems, it's really helped out a lot of local reefers here, is I always have, 15 pounds or so of rock in the sump, and I just simply cycle it out. I'll throw in the, dead rock. I'll throw some dead rock in there, let it, come alive after 3 or 4 months. And when somebody's setting up a system or I'm setting up a system, I have that rock in the sump to use. I use it in a new system and I just simply replace what was in my sump. And it's made all the difference.
So you're helping a lot of guys out like that then?
Yeah, a lot of locals. Yeah, I mean, if you're local to me here, I've always got corals. I don't sell them anymore these days, so I always have to get rid of some. And
where's local to you? Michigan, right?
Yep, I'm in Michigan. Out in Dearborn, so Metro Detroit area. These days, most of the corals will go to my local fish store, and I just turn them in for some credit.
So
my camera's gone, guys. I will be with you in a second. I'm just having a bit of an issue. Sorry.
So funny, obviously on the bacterial side of things, again, you've obviously done the carbon dosing for a very long time, but the larger system you've got now, you're using a zeolite reactor, aren't you, for the first time? You want to
Correct.
talk us through your thoughts on that, and is it something that you're going to continue doing in the future?
Yeah, I really like the zeolite reactor. I like the zeolites simply for the bacteria aspect. I haven't really, I don't change them out as often as recommended. So I'm not using it for the properties that I guess it was intended for. They typically recommend you replace the zeolites, I guess, every 4 weeks. And I'm
Hmm.
closer to, God, I mean, the 3 or 6 month mark sometimes. I'm simply using it to harvest the bacteria, to get the bacteria to grow so I can release it into my system.
Hmm.
So I've noticed if in this system versus the others with the zeolites, I will say the growth has been incredible, much quicker. I mean, to grow a system out in 13 months is just unheard of.
Hmm.
If you guys go back and see the original images and where it went, and a lot of that is attributed to the bacteria. Every morning I'll get in there, release the bacteria, and the entire tank will cloud up with it. The SPS will extend their feeder tentacles. I mean, you can definitely see it.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that I've been in and out of your inbox, sort of hassling you about to try and do a similar method.
Yeah.
I don't get as much of the I don't get as much of the mulm release, but I think it's because I'm using an automatic system in that there's a pump that kicks in and
Yep.
turns it over, and it's obviously not going to be anywhere near as vigorous as what you're doing with the hand pumping system.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd recommend to if people were looking to start one up? Is there anything that you'd say would have to be an essential to maybe start a zeolite reactor, or is it something that you think most people can jump on as long as they manage it in the right way?
I don't think it's too hard to jump into. I think most people could manage it. I would firstly make sure the system is stable. I wouldn't set it up with
Hmm.
a new system. I'd make sure that the system is going. It's kind of that thing where you're going to get the last 5-10% out of your system. You got to have
Yeah.
all the basics. System has to be running well. It's not a band-aid.
Hmm.
And maybe the same can be said sometimes with carbon dosing. You want to make sure all the basics are there and that you're on firm ground. Because that's I do get a lot of messages from a lot of people, and I try to get back to everybody. Sometimes it's tough, and you'd be amazed how just people are jumping from system to system to system, or I'm going to Zeovit, or I'm going to Moonshiners, or I'm going to this, and my ICP says this, and I was like, well, have you, what are your basics? What are you at right now? How's your flow? What are your levels on certain things? How did you start the system? Do you have live rock? And a lot of times people the biology is in there. They started
Hmm.
the system with dead rock, and they're just adding things much too quickly than the system, can handle.
Yeah. But you've got quite a high fish load as well, haven't you? So
I
your
do.
input is massive. So obviously your zeolites are going to be potentially managing a far greater number of nitrates and phosphates compared to, a lot of other people because you've got such a high fish number. And how often are you feeding the fish a day again?
I'm feeding them twice a day, so 0700 and 1700 daily. So twice
Hmm.
a day. I feed basic things. So I'll feed the flakes, some spectrum pellets, and
Hmm.
I do have a copper band butterfly, so I had to get into the frozen food. But I mean, throughout my whole reefing career, it's always been flakes and
Yeah.
spectrum pellets. But yeah, I do have a heavy load of food in there. I don't really mess with the amino acids too much. I do have some Zeo Food Plus, which I'm sure is a mixture of some aminos and vinegar, but it's a small dose. I believe it's 6 drops a week, or
Hmm.
sorry, 6 drops twice a week. So it's not a ton like I used to do back in the days. I'd have those little protobio. I think it's the Reef booster
Hmm.
that I would dump in there. So I'm not as heavy with that because I just noticed that would cause slime and a whole bunch of other issues. So these days, yeah, heavy fish load. Yeah, heavy import, heavy export throughout my systems, and that seems to work out really well if you can find the balance. It's just
Hmm.
taking the time to find that balance.
I think there's a big misconception in the hobby about heavy in, heavy out, because I think a lot of people think that means just putting a load of food in and then running
Yeah,
something GFO to rip it out. So would you exactly right? Can you
you're right.
just detail what you think heavy in, heavy out is, and how you accomplish that?
Heavy in, heavy out is you have to have the biology in there to support it. So if I'm growing, a ton of bacteria in there, that bacteria it's gonna do multiple things. It is gonna, number one, it's gonna take up the nutrients that are in there and reproduce, but at the same time, it's gonna, help feed my corals. Also, you're going to have a, maintenance schedule set up if you are doing the heavy out. I'm still a firm believer in water changes. I do run a, decent sized skimmer. There is another thing, these days in the hobby, which is a bit different from back in the days where, you know, water changes were the gospel. It was, nobody really questioned it 15, 20 years ago. I mean, that's what you did. And these days you see a lot of people just questioning, water changes, and to the point where, you have those threads going back and forth, concerning that, which I find a bit silly, but if it works, it works. But it's one of my basics.
It's I think that's probably something that for a lot of people is not. I wouldn't say it's hard to grasp, but I think for a lot of people they're reaching for that magic potion. They're reaching for something that they want that quick fix or that quick reef. Obviously, you've had a successful reef in 13 months, but that's come from 25 years of building up, like you're saying, bacterial stability and a really diverse ecosystem with that live rock. And it's something that I think a lot of people maybe struggle to grasp in the early days. They think that they can just pop, corals and fish in a tank and they're going to get similar results. But obviously, like you're saying now, it's going to take a lot of experience and a lot of time to really get yourself into a position where you can even think to start to achieve that. It is a long game for a lot of people, isn't it?
It is. It is definitely a long game, and if you're setting up a new system nowadays, you're going to want to wait a few months. Even when I set up this small 40-gallon, when I had everything going, off on the sideline, I had the live rock was still cooking for multiple months. It was sitting around waiting. I was dosing bacteria, and it was a good 3 months before I started putting anything into that system. And I even played around with it. I threw a little SPS in there a bit early, tried to get ahead of it, and they weren't really doing much. And then about the 3 month mark, once everything got stable and going, things took off. So even for me, it's you definitely have to go that way. I did try an interesting experiment years ago, where this was probably 7, 8 years ago, where the dead rock thing had just taken off and everybody was starting the systems because they were afraid of all sorts of hitchhikers. So I'm like, let me try a little tank here, little 40-gallon with some dead rock and see what happens. Complete disaster.
Mm-hmm.
I could not grow a thing in there, man. It was just a nightmare. It was going for about 6 months. I'm like, this is crazy. I go, if I can't grow it, I help everybody else, man. It's terrible.
You've mentioned flow a good few times there as well in some of your previous comments. What is it for you? Sort of, is there anything you could use that would give you a good idea, a good gauge on what good flow is for an SPS system, especially a system like yours that's quite well grown out?
Oh, I usually push for 100 times the flow. So 100 times, gallons per hour for the system itself, for the system volume. My system, I'm 120 flow per hour, 120 times. So I've got the two MP40s that are, most of the time, they're close to 100% during the day on my schedule. And then I've got a pretty cool Tunes Stream 3, which is, you don't see it too much in the hobby. And I've actually got it mounted vertically. It looks like a little rocket. It's kind of a crazy looking pump. It's probably a little more popular in your neck of the woods out there than it is over here. And then I've got the Vectra L2 return pump. And I've got that thing cranked up pretty high. And I mean, flow is essential. I mean, that's corals are respirating. That's how they get their nutrients. That's how they, push off toxins. And I think that's one big thing that a lot of people miss out on, especially when they're doing these crazy, intricate designs. I think I put a little quick video the other day about just how people spend so much time putting these far out rock designs that, I mean, they're not even thinking about lighting, about flow, about how the corals are going to grow out. And it just, it's nope. Just, put the rocks in there, have a decent structure, get a general idea. And you've got to kind of visualize the way the corals are going to grow and how they're going to grow around the flow and around the lighting. And that's, a lot of people are missing out on that these days.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I think we may have talked about it before I was setting this system up. Obviously, Christian's been really helpful with me in terms of flow as well. I built a very low aquascape because the water movement across the top and having that continual water movement and cycling around was something that I was really aiming to do. That was something based off of, I think it was your 2007 tank where you had the 2 islands. They're quite low islands, but it gave you a lot of grow room to be able to grow the corals up and allow that water movement to continue throughout the life of the system. Which again is something that obviously I look to focus on a little bit with that. Think as well, I think there's a lot of people that, yes, you've touched on there, the 100 times turnover. Think a lot of people underestimate just how strong the ocean is and how much the corals can deal with. They can see the polyps moving quite aggressively, let's say from the water movement they have in their tank, and they might think it's too much and it's stressing the corals. There is, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there may be a potential that some corals may have a bit of an adverse reaction initially because they're just maybe not used to it being in the tank so long. But it is something that aggressive movement is quite key to be, pretty constant throughout the day, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's 100%, and you can see certain corals just the way they grow. I've seen tanks, locally where I've got the Bali green slimer, where mine are nice and thick and the way it grows out, and then I see some other systems where they're really skinny because they're not getting enough flow in the system. Or now, while we're talking on the flow, in my systems, the way I set them up, because the systems they are rectangular. It's a little tougher in your system because it's a bit square. I'll set them up in a gyre formation, where if you're looking at the tank head on, the pump on the left side is going to be towards the back, and the one on the right side is going to be towards the front. So you get that circular, motion coming through, and that I found that really helps push the entire volume of the water around.
That's something I noticed in my coral tables, Sonny. And so we got 8x4 coral tables at the farm. And when I first set it up, I couldn't grow corals around the outside. So there was a good 8-inch perimeter of those tables where I couldn't grow corals. I was thinking, what's going on? And I had my point of turbulence in the middle going back and forth where the pumps were fighting each other. It wasn't until it occurred to me, let's try out a Gaia. So it just went all the way and then all the way.
Yep.
That goes anywhere.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't get that in their tanks as well. They think, they need that turbulence going down the middle. It
Nope.
just feels like this. Whereas what flows this coral getting or what flows that coral getting?
Yep.
So I'd recommend anybody, no matter what tank you've got, is set up a time where you've got a full-on laminar Gaia. Go with either side, because your corals will thank you for it.
Yeah, that makes all the difference in the world. I mean, you have to have that variable flow in the systems. And like I said, corals will adapt. They'll adapt to your flow. They'll adapt to your lighting. Don't get too hung up on the par numbers. When it comes especially to lighting, stuff is going to just, keep an eye on it, monitor your growth, coloration, and that'll tell you where you need to be.
So bear in mind par numbers, do you measure your own par? How do you gauge your light? How do you set up your lights in your tank?
I've been using the Ecotech Radions for going on 5 years now. And I did initially check out the par just to see what it would be around. And I believe it was somewhere in the 400s, 350 to 400. Just to kind of get a general idea, but I don't, typically will check it. I just check the one time, just like I said, to get a general idea. I do it more off just the coral itself, how it's growing, its coloration, and I'll adjust the intensity from there. In my systems, though, the lights, when the system wasn't growth mode, the intensity was set to 100%. It's closer to 75% now these days, just because I wanted to dial down the growth. But I slowly ramped it up and just gave them as much lighting as possible. That's always been my philosophy. It's just slam the corals with lighting and kind of see what happens.
You're watching who don't really know. Could you kind of explain what you're looking for into the coral to understand if it wants more or less light? What are the traits you're looking for?
A lot of it I look for when it comes to the growth is the coral with the lighting is the coloration of the corals. Big indicator if the corals are getting too light in color, or sometimes if they can have too much lighting, they can be a little photo inhibited. You'll see them stop growing. You won't see the growth tips anymore on them. And then in the inverse, if I see the corals getting duller or browner in coloration, that's a good indicator to me as well when it comes to the lighting. Usually they'll be able to tell you fairly quick what's going on in the system.
Any technological issues like me over the years?
Tech? No, not really on the technological side. I try to keep them somewhat basic in my systems. I've always been happy with Ecotech's products and with the stuff that I use with them. One of the MP40s that are in this system here is from 2012. I think I jumped on their wagon around, it was with that 100-gallon system. So that was around 2007 when they first came out with that MP40. Right. So I've been on that train for a long time. I really like their pumps. So they've been running solid for me. I never really had much issues with them on the tech side. Lighting, no problems there. I was a little worried about the LEDs, to be honest, when I jumped over to that because it was a whole new thing. But I've been extremely happy with them. It doesn't give you the same look as metal halide. You know, nothing will.
No.
The metal halide look is just magical, but it's just not practical anymore for me these days. They're just too cumbersome.
Okay.
In terms of the lighting, obviously, you sent me across. I think the schedule is available on your website, isn't it?
Correct.
And you emailed me a copy across, I think, as well. It's quite a purple spectrum you got going on, isn't it? It's far more purple than sort of like the heavy blues that a lot of people see. There's a real purple tinge to it.
Yeah, this purple. I like the daylight look quite a bit. So the photo period will run from 0700 to 2100 daily. So it's a 14-hour schedule. It'll start out, blue for the first period of the day. So the first 4 hours, it'll have 6 hours of really white, intense lighting, and then circle back to another 4 hours of blue lighting, kind of phase out that way. So I get the best of both worlds. My systems have always run a more, whiter spectrum on the end. I like it, and the corals I think the corals look better, the SPS especially. The blue lighting works really well for LPS and softer tanks, but especially for SPS, I've always favored the lighter side, just simply for the coloration of the corals.
In terms of color temperature, we're talking about sort of it's something you can achieve on the radions, isn't it? You can adjust that temperature slider. Are you sort of knocking around the 10, 12K mark?
Yeah, it's around about 10, 12K. Back in the days we ran 6,500K. Those Yushios, I believe they were, the Japanese bulbs, and we had to use a heavy amount of those VHO bulbs to kind of counteract the coloration there and make it look halfway decent.
Or all you saw was a rock and the algae.
That question there from Nick, Sonny. How much coral colouring are you doing with light spectrum versus nutrition?
Oh, I don't think the nutrition itself is going to make a big difference with my coloration. I mean, yes, it will help to bring out the colors because you are lowering or adjusting some of the nutrients. Yeah. But I think a lot of it is the lighting. And there's other things you can experiment with. I know in the past when I was really getting into the coloration, I would, dose iodine and a few other things to bring out blues and pinks and certain colors. And it really does. You can get crazy with it if you really want to fine tune it. I know the folks over at Zeovid have really, tuned that into a science where they're adding certain chemicals to bring out colors. But
I was on that train. For a long time, and yeah. It got very expensive.
Oh yeah.
And my dosing schedule turned into an Excel spreadsheet, and it got a little bit. Yeah, it did get a little bit. You talked about earlier about chasing numbers, which we talk often in this hobby. That's exactly what I felt. I was on that train, and I didn't know where I was going, other than, like you said earlier, about the cyano. But yeah, it's you've got to be. I think. Tell me if you disagree, by all means. But I think you've got to be quite stern with yourself as you progress in this hobby, and sort of stop yourself from meandering down different avenues of new things and new ideas, and try and rein yourself in a little bit to keep it simple and stick to what's worked for you. I think sometimes over the years.
Yeah, I think that's another issue that you see these days is people are just, like I said earlier, jumping from thing to thing. They're not taking the time to let the system develop, and that's a big problem. I mean, you're never going to outcompete nature. You're not going to outsmart her. This is it's been going on for millions of years. There's a system. Stick to it. Weather the storm. You're gonna, especially if you're new to the hobby, you're gonna have issues, man. You just have to have the wherewithal, and that's kind of what I tell people who are looking to jump in the hobby. I'm like, all right, well, how much time and how much patience do you have? Because to be honest, for most, the first 6 months, it's gonna suck. Yeah. You're gonna go through all the phases, all the issues, all the problems, and that's the fun part of jumping into it. And that's when you do the research and you kind of jump into it. And I'll get a lot of people just asking for tips and advice, or how to set up a system. And I'll give them the basics, but a lot of it you have to live it. You have to take your licks, so to speak.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. I'm going to throw a bit of a negative question at you, so I can't be seen as the bad guy. So, what would you say were your sort of biggest mistakes in the 25 plus years? And have you ever got to a crossroad or a point where, I know some reefers have, where you thought about calling it a day and doing something else? Maybe.
I don't know if I've ever gotten to that point. You know, I did get to the point once where if I did want to throw in the towel, you know, it was just maybe out of boredom. Just, you know, I've done all the stuff, I've done everything in there, and I was like, you know, this is not fun anymore. I think that happened when I was selling the corals years ago when I was doing pro corals, and I was in the coral selling hobby, or you know, that was way back. That was probably around 2008, 2009. So that's probably the biggest mistake I ever did was actually selling corals. It really made me hate the hobby. I mean, not hate it, but it took all my passion away because back then, you know, people were just starting to collect corals. I was, you know, kind of chasing them almost like Pokemon, hunting down all the different corals, different things. And then suddenly I had every coral I wanted. I mean, I was getting all sorts of things. In the beginning, it was fun, but then when it became a job, I was like, yeah, I don't know, man. This is taking away my passion from the hobby. And it was nice. It was lucrative. I never had enough corals to sell just because of how quickly they were being turned. But it just kind of just one of them things. So yeah, that was probably my biggest mistake was going commercial with it.
Wow, interesting.
It's a hard balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's 100%. It's a balance. You know, these days, if I ever started to jump into a commercial, you know, I'd probably go into it a little better than I did back then, and you know, with some better choices, and not strictly focusing on it, especially as a you know primary source of income for me. But
how long did you do it for commercially then?
oh, it was probably around. See, I was selling a lot locally at the time, and was doing really well with that. So I'd have a ton of people coming over, leaving the house with the brown paper bag. I'm sure my neighbors thought I was a drug dealer. Incredibly high energy bills. So they're like, man, what is going on with this guy? And then eventually I was like, you know what? I go, let's just try this coral thing. Let's just see what we can do. There weren't a lot of vendors back then around that time, especially online. You know, this is 2007, 2008. So we were just starting out with it. And, you know, it worked out pretty good. So yeah, about 3 years. And then, yeah, like I said, it just completely killed my passion for the hobby. And then at the same time, I had, you know, medical issues. I got sick and I had to kind of, you know, sell off most of the stuff and get out of it. It's just because my immune system couldn't handle being around the bacteria and the other issues.
Good answer. I wanted to ask you as well. I've got a couple up my sleeve here. Again, apologies for the technical issues. I need to buy a new battery for my camera, Christian.
Yeah.
More expense.
Okay.
Anyway, modern technology. Who's your inspiration? As we did a video on this a while back. Who have been your influences over the years in terms of your time in the hobby? Because obviously you are one now to some people. I imagine.
Yeah.
We know.
Oh yeah, back in the days, I really took a lot of inspiration from. That's when Reef Central was really big, and so a lot of the Tank of the Months on there. There were some really decent ones. Some of the guys I'm still friends with, like Robbie Sion. You know, Rob's. If you look back at his tank, I think he was somewhere around 2004, 2005. He had a really nice 90-gallon system, which was really beautiful. There were some other guys out in was it Joe out in New York, Joe Berger, JBNY. He had a really nice system out there. So those guys, they kind of showed what you can do. And then my biggest inspiration, I guess, for my systems came just looking at the what the Germans and some of the Japanese were doing, especially the Germans, just with their harnessing of carbon dosing and just the way they were laying out their systems. And then, believe it or not, the planted systems. I've dabbled a little bit here and there with the freshwater planted, but I've got a lot of inspiration in my systems and the way they look with that minimalist look from that. And yeah, it's kind of funny. Somebody the other day was I forgot what it was. I shared one of my old pictures from way back on that 100-gallon, showing the system that almost looked like the ocean. It was really minimalist, and somebody's like, "Oh wow, it looks like so and so's system. You've taken inspiration from them." I was like, no, my system was set up 15 years before them on there, and that's what I always find interesting is back then people would put the systems up almost like a wall and kind of stack rocks up, and they weren't really doing the minimalist thing. And I don't want to say I started it, but I did definitely start a trend there when I set up that 100-gallon system and went very minimalist with it.
Cool.
We're talking about
Cool.
the 2007 system, yeah, the
Correct.
2 islands.
Yep,
Yeah.
the 2 islands.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't really being done at the time. People, like I said, were just stacking up rocks, and I just decided to go with something a little more minimal. And it wasn't. I mean, part of it was for the aesthetics, but the majority of it was actually for the flow, just to make sure I got enough stuff going around, and because that was one of my big issues on the previous systems, was just getting the flow around. Because eventually you get detritus and all sorts of things building up, and it's really hard to get out, and you end up having problems. A couple years in.
That was one of the. I'll be honest. That was one of the. I basically found. I went through the old Reef Central forums and was going through the old tanks of the month, and your tank was one of the ones that I picked out of, and I thought I like the aesthetic of this. I like the practicality of it with the smaller islands, and it was one of the reasons that I went with the style I've gone for in this tank, because it does work well practically, and it does have a really nice sort of aesthetic appeal to it as well.
Yeah.
Is this the rimless reef one you're talking about?
Yep.
Let's see if I could throw that on there. This is
it was clean. It was funny because there weren't any rimless reefs back then.
This one?
No.
Yep.
No.
Yeah. So back then, rimless system wasn't a thing around that time. I remember going to Miracles in Glass up in Toronto, Canada. So I'm about 4 hours from Toronto, and they made me sign a waiver on there when they built the tank.
Wow.
What?
I told them what I wanted, and they're like, what? They're like, you don't want to, because Euro bracing was a big thing then. People were getting away from the standard, tanks with the little black lips and whatnot and the bracing, and they were going with Euro bracing. You guys may have had it before us, but, well, I would imagine if it's called Euro bracing. But that was a big thing at the time. And I told them, look, I want a clean look, especially with the lighting, and I want to do a rimless. And so they ran some numbers and came back and they said, okay, we're going to have to do 1/2-inch glass. We're going to have to brace it, a certain way. We're going to have to actually put they did the Euro bracing inside at the bottom of the system, on the bottom pane. They don't really do that these days, but that's what they did with that first system. It was a little strange, but hey, it ended up working. And, then, to my surprise, years later, it became a thing.
Just look at those acros.
Oh, you want to look? Let's have a look.
Last night, so
yes.
And the coloration on some of these acros is near perfect, isn't it? Well, it is perfect. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, that's a really nice one.
Any silly names? Any cartoon names, or are they just?
This one was this is actually Sunset Millie. It was my Sunset Millie, Sonny X Sunset Millie. Sonny X was my screen tag on the forums, and that one's actually sold these days with here in the USA by Adam at Battle Corals.
Right.
He was probably the first guy to get this coral, and it came in wild. Way back when it was one of my first SPSs, or maybe it was Mariculture that came in on that little rock pod, and it ended up bleaching out, and then it came in green, and then it came back with this fiery color, and under certain under the right conditions, it gets a really nice yellow with an orange, little red in there, and then you see hints of green with the polyps. So that was a really cool piece. I don't actually have it in this system, but in the next system, I am going to hit up Adam and try to get it back. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next.
So in terms of the next system, what are your current thoughts in terms of size, shape, scape, methodology? Are you going to keep the similar methodology that you're using now, or is this anything you might want to experiment with?
I don't think I'm going to change it up too much with the methodology. It seems to work. It works out well. So methodology kind of stay the same. It'll be carbon dosed. I do want to set up some other smaller systems. I've always liked setting up the big ones, and they look great. But having multiple smaller systems is also a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I want to maybe do with the next one, look down reef. Something a little different. I've always had them set up against the wall, but this is something that'll be smaller, maybe 50 gallons or so, just an extra tank. Not really my main display, but a lot of inverts, maybe even no fish in there. Just different creatures, different things, almost like a shallow lagoon.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be cool. For the main system, I probably will go with a big one on the next tank. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing here on my end, if I'm going to expand my home or get into a different one. So I'm kind of going back and forth on that, and that'll depend. But yeah, it'll be a big tank. It'll probably be, 10 feet by 5 feet, really big.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. These days I'm kind of blessed with the sponsors. So that's kind of nice. So I don't have to worry about that end of it. So that really helps.
Interesting. We've just had a recent show in the UK. Nothing of the scale that you guys do in the States, but it is hopefully a step in the right direction and a sign of bigger things to come over the next few years. Nick's asking here, and we all watch in the UK. A lot of the YouTube content is created from the shows. So just to ask Nick's question here: which one do you tend to attend, or do you avoid them? What's your thoughts on them?
Never really been to a big show.
Okay.
We had a small one here in Michigan years and years back, and that was kind of cool. But yeah, I've never really gone out to the shows. I've been invited multiple times. And in the past, I've actually got invited to do different things, speakership and whatnot. I just kind of, it wasn't really ever for me to go out and actually do that. Local one I went to it was kind of cool. It was the first time I met out here in the U.S. Got to meet Adam, rest in peace, from Reef Builders. So that was kind of cool. He actually got a piece of that, the Millie that you guys showed earlier, that Sunset Millie. I gave one to Sanjay too when Sanjay was out here, so I got to meet him too. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, I don't really go out to the shows all that often. I'm not really kind of on an island here when it comes to reefing. I mean, if you were living in the area, I mean, you'd be set because you'd be full of corals. You'd have all sorts of stuff. It'd be a reefer's dream. I kind of wish I had more people involved in here. Especially with my systems, it's kind of strange to say. These days, especially on this one, I've probably only had one or two other reefers ever see it in person.
Wow.
There's really not a whole lot of, involvement here on my end. I'm sure the people are out there, but yeah, that's something I'll probably change.
Would you say it's something that is it the Michigan area in general? There's quite a small community, would you say, or is it just more for yourself? You've got other aspects of your life that you tend to focus on. So reefing is your personal hobby, shall we say?
Michigan's actually pretty big in the hobby. We have a lot of really good stores out here, a lot of areas. We have some big vendors. I think Cherry Corals is pretty big here in the U.S. and they're right down the street from me. I know those guys. Back when they were growing corals in the basement, and they've got a decent establishment. There's a really nice place near us. I was out there the other day, Detroit Reef Club, and I don't know if you guys know heard of Bash Sea Aquatics. They've got they make some really high-end equipment for systems, and I got to go back there and check out their fabrication and what they're doing, kind of pick their brains on a few different things, and so that was kind of cool. But no, there's definitely big hobbies, big needs. I just kind of stayed away from it, just personal life, just between work. I've got 4 children, physical training, a whole bunch of things. My days are pretty busy, especially with my day job. It ends up taking up a lot of my time.
You are quite active you were particularly active on sort of the old Reef Central forums and Reef to Reef. Is that something you still? I did in the early days even though I've not been in the hobby a ton of time. The early days I spent a lot of time trawling the forums. Is it something you still are quite active on?
Not as much anymore. If I get time, I will jump on and try to answer questions and help people out. I just I love that aspect of it, especially when people are sincere and they really want to learn. Not just with reefing. I mean, all the other things in life, and people really want some help. I'm more than happy to help them out. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. We're here to, help the next generation and kind of inspire people to continue on with the hobby because, I believe, we do a, valuable service, especially when you're, doing it sustainably, growing the corals, getting them, here from aquaculture and whatnot. And I've seen the spark happen with a lot of young people, especially when they first get into the hobby. I mean, they're just, you get that, you can see it in their eyes. They get that look, the addict look. I'm like, oh, here we go. Hope your bank account is ready.
Well, that leads me on to something I wanted to ask you with your experience. What would you say
What's your interpretation, or I suppose opinion, on how you see the hobby evolving over the next sort of 5 to 10 years? With you being in it so long, what do you think that the next big things are going to be?
I think from the next big things, I don't see a huge advancement on the tech front really at the moment. It's unless they come out with something radical, it's going to be hard to really change or improve on the flow. Maybe lower profile units. Maybe
Right.
Ecotech may come out with something like that. The lighting's probably going to get. If I was going to guess with say the Radions, they may go to a larger panel format like the ATIs have. That might happen. I can't really see on the tech side how much more they're going to improve. I mean, they could find some efficiencies with the filtration, but a lot of the stuff that we have nowadays is pretty hasn't changed much. Especially when it comes to protein skimmers. You've seen all the different designs, the things that have come and gone. I think ATI had them for a long time. Maybe it was ATB had the cone skimmers. That was a big thing at one point. I'm not seeing a big change on that front. When it comes to corals, I am seeing a lot of people go more towards the old school corals these days. So I'm seeing a big resurgence in that, especially in the past year. Just people have been more interested in those easier to grow, hardier corals, and I think people are starting to focus a bit more on the coral growth and the kind of their formations, the way things are. People are focusing more on the system itself and not specifically on the coral, if that makes any sense. Where people are always back in the days, even now, people are chasing really high end corals that don't really grow as quickly, which they're really nice to collect, but they don't really do well for a major system. My systems need to have a Bali green slimer, just because I know the way it's going to grow in the system, the way it's going to fill out, versus what do I have in here? What's probably my hottest coral that I have? The Homewrecker. I think that's the Jason Fox. I'm not really big in the names these days. I picked it up from my local fish store just because he had it, and he's like, "Hey, take this in case mine dies. At least I know it's in good hands with you." It doesn't grow as quickly as my other corals. It's nice to look at, but I mean that's kind of what I'm seeing these days. Just people going more towards the old schools.
Do you feel that's because we're living in, I say, the golden age of reefing, where a lot of the corals have come in? Like, certainly from yourself being so long in the hobby, you'd have seen everything a million times, right?
Yeah.
Do you see fresh corals, new corals? I know there's a bit of Malaysia coming in now, so they're quite excited. But
Yeah.
do you think that's a reason to do with it, why it's gone full circle? All the hot corals have come and gone, and people just want the classics again. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it is. It is just another trend. It'll change in a few years. I've just seen them all come. I remember when ACAMs were, oh my god, you couldn't touch them. They were so expensive. I remember torches back years ago. Nobody really looked at them. I can get them for $10 a head over here. I mean, they were nothing. Same thing with chalices. At one point, they cost nothing, and then they went up to $1,000 an eye, which is just insane. So yeah, these things come and go. These trends, and it'll end up changing. Something else will come along. People will hype it up as the next thing, and just the way it goes. Same thing goes with everything else in life, fashion and whatnot.
You guys do a lot of. Do you do anything regarding the bacteria, the microbiome, the study and sending it off? That's a thing you've got in the States. It's something that bacteria has been a hot topic over here for a while now. We obviously don't have that. We don't have that option anymore, and hopefully it's something that we will get. Is it something you believe is of value? No, shaking the head.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't really prescribe to that to the testing of it. I mean, maybe it's cool to look at. I don't get really into too much of the science into it. I know some guys are really about the science and the aspects, and to be honest, a lot of the guys I've talked to in the past who were really crazy into the science and the tech, systems didn't look all that nice. I mean,
really?
Yeah. It's just kind of trend I've seen in the past. People have kind of really gone crazy with the science and the tech, and then they were maybe because the focus wasn't so much on the corals and working to identify certain things or kind of focusing on the basics, that they've kind of let that go to the wayside. But yeah, on my end, I'm not really too big into that.
I see a lot of that, people tinkering. That's what it comes down to again. It's science, and this is the latest greatest trace element, and you do this with it, you're going to get these colors, and it's like, we didn't need it back in the day. You know, you could have beautiful tanks, you didn't care, right? Your tank was either beautiful or not. And I think this whole tinkering, these science guys, all they're creating is mass instability.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, they are causing a lot of problems. Yeah, stick to the basics. I mean, you can run a system just fine doing water changes. You know, depending on the size. You know, as you get larger, you're going to have to add a 2-part to keep your calcium and alkalinity in check. But when you start branching out from, you know, calcium, alkalinity, magnesium, and so on, once you start testing more, you know, other than some of those basics and branching out, that's where you start getting into problems, I believe, where, you know, people will message me with their ICP analysis. I've never done one. I don't plan on doing one. And they're asking me about, about boron and I don't know, all these different chemicals. I'm like, I don't know, man. I got no clue why your levels are that high or why you're even testing it. I mean, my stuff's probably off the charts. Who knows? Corals are growing fine. Things are doing well. I don't know. I mean, you know, I might actually do one just to kind of, you know, see what's going on in my system. And that might be a little bit come to a shock.
Yeah, but do you think if you do one, then you'll wish you didn't do it? Because you're going to find something and then you're going to...
100%. Yeah. It might take away some of that magic with what I'm doing in my systems. And to be honest, you know, my method, I mean, yes, I have a system. I do, you know, I am pretty diligent about my maintenance when it comes, you know, the weekends. But I don't spend that much time on my systems, honestly. You know, on a Saturday, I might spend an hour. And throughout the week, I'm just feeding the fish, cleaning the glass. I mean, that's it. You know, handful of hours each week. It's kind of a lazy reefing method just because I keep things simple. I don't dose a ton of things. I don't get into the trace elements and all that. I just found a system that works for me and I just let nature take its course. And, you know, most importantly, with my systems, when I set them up, I don't typically add any corals after that. Everything goes in all at once. I'm not moving anything around, tinkering. You know, I'll try to figure it out and just kind of let, you know, if it grows, it grows.
Interesting.
With old rock, how long would you leave it until you put the corals in? Did you put them all in pretty quick?
So the main system I have right now, everything went in pretty quick because everything was transferred over from a 40-gallon system into this larger one. So everything went, you know, right away. And that's typically how I've done it in the past. If I was changing a system out, I would move everything, you know, day one. If I'm setting up a new system that's fresh and I'm not transferring things over, what I do these days is I won't go 100% live rock as I did with the 40-gallon. I'd like typically keep it around 30-40% live rock and the rest dead rock, just because live rock is so hard to, you know, come to get these days. You know, back then you would order it from, you know, here it was Live Aquaria, and they drop ship it from Fiji, and you would get it, you know, 2 days later wrapped in newspaper. It stunk to high heaven, and you'd have to wait for the die off, and then all the ocean to crawl out of the rocks, and all the and then the system would cycle, but it'd definitely be a few months. I'd say probably around 90 days or so before I'd really be putting stuff in there.
What's the funkiest thing that you've had come out of live rock? The craziest thing you found?
I've had managed shrimp. We got a shipment years ago from Australia, and I believe there was a cone snail in there. We've got an octopus, a blue ring octopus. Wow. So yeah, we've had some wild things come through on rock and on corals way back. I was terrified, man, when I would get the stuff coming in from some of these vendors way back then. We'd put the stuff in there, and I forgot what it was. We would dose, I think it was Revive, or I don't recall what the chemical was. Smelled a bit like Pine Sol. Had this, I don't know if you guys know what Pine Sol is over there. It had this, it smelled like a cleaner. And
chemical,
chemical, and I would dose it into I'd dose a capful into the little tub where I'd have all the rock or the corals coming in just to get the creatures out, the hitchhikers, and the entire ocean would crawl out of these rocks and things I've never seen before. And it was just terrifying.
Jeez.
Wow. How much time do you spend on your systems at the minute then? What's your current sort of maintenance schedule? Do you want to just talk to us about that? What do you?
Yeah, so daily I will feed the fish, like I said. So every morning I'll get up, I'll feed them. It'll be 0700, feed the fish, and then I'll shake up the zeolite reactor.
Yeah.
And do my dosages. I'll throw in the all for Reef. So I'll dump that into the main system, about 150 milliliters. So I'm kind of heavy on that side. I'll dose the MP Bactyl balance. And then later on that day, feed the fish again, and that's kind of it for the day. During the week, probably once a week, I'll go in there, Wednesday or Thursday of the week, and just clean the glass. And then Saturday is when I'll spend a little more time just cleaning out the skimmer, changing filter socks, cleaning the glass, maybe an hour. If I'm doing a water change on this main system, is probably every 6 weeks now. I'll spend about 2 hours, but yeah, it's minimal time during the week. I don't spend a whole bunch on it. Like I said, I don't like to tinker with it too much.
You like to clean the sand and use the reef snow as well, aren't you? They're the two things that you're quite big
I
on.
like doing that. Yeah, so Saturdays I will dump the snow in there. I will, move the sand around a bit, and then I will vacuum it when I'm doing the water changes. But that even doing that, just the water change portion doesn't take me long. 20 minutes at most. I've got it down to a science now. So
I think the Reef Snow has got to be one of the most talked about videos that you did on your YouTube channel. Do you want to just give us a bit of a? I know some of the people that are watching. I know Dave in particular messaged me last night on Instagram because he was really interested in it. Do you want to just give us a bit of a background as to how you decided to come up with it and how it evolved?
I used it years ago. Well, it was a commercial formula, so I used the Zeovit one that they had. Their version of the snow, and that was way back, in the early 2000s, and that's when I was messing around with the vodka, and that was one of the ways I was trying to get rid of the cyano slime. So I was using that in conjunction with some of the bacteria, and it did help, but that stuff was pretty expensive. And then just looking around, I found out that hey, this is just calcium carbonate. You can make it yourself for pennies on a dollar. So I started using that in my main systems, and I was using it from time to time. But on the main system here, on the main system here, I did start to do it weekly, just because I just saw the benefits of it. Just with the water clarity, it really helped, and as a secondary, it was helping to feed some of the corals too. I did notice that as well, just with the way it was binding things, so that helped. And like I said, the system here has never had cyano slime or any of those issues. And I attribute that largely, number one, to the MP bacterial balance, but also to the coral snow, I believe. Because, this is the only system I've ever had that didn't have any slime. I mean, it's typical. Every system I've had, twice a year, like clockwork, I would get slime. This one's just been free of it.
Were the systems you've had where you've had the slime in the past, you ran the nutrients a lot lower on those systems, didn't you? It was sort of, you were running that fine line. Now you're running the higher ranges. You're sort of keeping things a lot more stable, you'd say.
Yeah, I'm running the higher ranges, but I think the difference is with the MP bacterial balance, I actually have the right ratio of nitrates and phosphates just because of the dosages. So it's that 16-to-1 ratio, was the Redfield ratio. So things are much more imbalanced. I think that's why I'm able to get away with the higher nutrients, where in the past, one or the other would go out of balance, out of whack. And when those aren't in line, that's when I started seeing the issues and the problems. So yeah, I think that's really helpful.
What were you running your nitrates at the moment? We've touched on the phosphates being 0.9. What were if you can remember, because I know you don't test very often.
Never tested them.
No, there you go.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I mean, when I set up the system, I was monitoring the alkalinity almost weekly in the beginning. I tested out the calcium once, and then just kind of from there, once everything was set at a set level with the alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium. I tested them the first time when it was set up. After that, like I said, I just monitored the alkalinity. Never tested the magnesium again. Never tested the calcium again. It's been 2.5 years. Phosphates, like I said, it's maybe every 6 months or a year, just out of curiosity to test it. Monitor the pH, which I like to run high. And that's kind of it.
What high? When you say high, pH, what were numbers we're talking?
8.3, 8.4, so a little higher than others would run. It's always been this thing in the hobby where people want you to run this. They give you a range, 7.7 to 8.2, and I'm like, no, keep it as high as you can, because I definitely notice increased growth when I'm doing that. And like I said, you're kind of walking a fine line, especially when you're low nutrient. You can get into trouble when your pH gets that high.
And something I obviously with you're someone that doesn't test very often. Again, you've got the 25 years of experience behind you, so you've got the eye for it. I'm going to go out there and assume that not testing very often is not something you'd recommend to a beginner because they just
No.
don't have the eye for it, and it's something that we as new, especially someone for myself, as a newer reefer, you need to understand what's going on. And obviously you've got the very diverse bacterial system, so you've got that safety net there that
Yeah.
keeps things a lot more stable for you. But for newer reefers, it's not something you'd advocate, is it?
No, no. For new reefers, I would say, start out testing. Don't go crazy with it. The basics: calcium, alkalinity, magnesium, pH, nitrates, phosphates. I mean, those core. And then maybe do that weekly, and then as you go on, progressively go to monthly, and then set up your own schedule. Maybe do it every quarter after that. I don't know. It just really depends on your experience and how you go. But I mean, you just don't have to test it weekly. I know some people will do ICP tests 3-4 times a month, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Hmm.
I
know that's something that.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry, carry on.
No, yeah. There are people who will do it multiple times a month, and which is kind of silly because, you really need to give it time for the system to adjust and for things to change.
Yeah, I know Keith is. I think Keith put out a video either yesterday or a few days previously where he's been doing, I think, the monthly ICPs, and I think now he's moving away to potentially. He was doing weekly or monthly. I can't remember which one it was, but he's now moving to a wider schedule, a longer frequency, just because I think he's got himself into sort of a position where he's like, yeah, things are stable, things are happy. I'm comfortable leaving it that longer period of time, obviously, like you're doing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, once things are stable, yeah, you can definitely dial back on that end. And like you said, definitely don't recommend it for beginners to kind of go through that because people, that's always the first question. It's funny. People will send me a message like, hey, what do you run this at and that at? I go, I don't know. I mean, it's, my numbers will never match up to your numbers. You shouldn't use my numbers as, as something to base your system on. Every system's going to be a little different. Things are going to run a little different. So, I mean, stick with the basics, figure out what the basic parameters are, and then kind of go from there.
Have you ever had any issues with pests in any of your systems, Sonny?
Yeah. In this system here, I did have the what are they? Those little snails, vermintid snails.
Vermitids.
Vermintid snails.
Vermintid, okay,
vermitids.
yeah, little vermintid snails. And what really killed them was that coral snow, and that decimated their numbers. So that was another after effect of the coral snow that I've noticed, and why I continue to dose it is because those things, I mean, they took off my system, and I could see them, killing the bases of some of the SPS. And so what I like to do is I will sometimes dose the bacteria. I'll shake up the zeolite reactor in the beginning, and then they'll put out all their little tentacles to absorb the bacteria, and then I hit them with the snow, and they pull that snow into their little tubes, and they end up killing themselves. So that's just kind of worked out with that. That was the main pest. I think back in the days it was red bugs was a thing. So some people had some of that. I may have dealt with the flatworms at the time, the acro-eating flatworms.
Yeah.
And on a smaller system, but never had anything too crazy that caused a major problem. I think the biggest problem was those vermintid snails.
Got a couple of questions. Go on.
Did you run UV on this system? You don't, do you? I don't think.
No, I've never used UV.
No, I don't think so.
Is there a reason why?
Yeah, just for the bacteria, for the biology. I just didn't want to kill them off. I know it can have some effects, and honestly, I didn't want to read up too much on the science of it. Jump in to see what I'm killing, what I'm keeping. And systems have always worked out just fine. I've got a really good supplier here locally with my fish. They go through the entire process. Pretty much every fish I've ever purchased was from them. So never had to deal with, believe it or not, never had to deal with ick, any kind of parasites, any issues in all the years I've had fish. I've had some fish live a long time, 15 years plus. And,
Wow.
Yeah, I had a blue tang, and the only reason I lost him was one day I had the lid off the system and he jumped out. And so, yeah.
Couple of questions for you, Sonny, in the chat. I'm just going to jump in. Sorry, audience, if we've been missing them. John Wright is asking, do you use Ecosystem Miracle Mud in your sump?
I don't, but I think it was that Len Singh, Leng Sai. He's the one who originated that. I've never tried it. I've always been interested in it, so maybe in a future system. I understand the concept of it. I might try it out. You know, that's a whole different thing. That's I believe a deep sand bed with the additional
Yeah.
nutrients that come out of it and minerals. So no, but I don't currently use it.
Okay. Reef. Fran's asking, have you heard of Great Lake corals in Pescatoni, Sonny?
Petoskey.
Petoskey,
Yeah.
even.
No, I haven't heard of those guys, but Michigan's a big state, and
Yeah.
Petoskey's way up north. I mean, they're in the wilderness, so yeah, they're probably a good 4 hours from my home. I've been up there, beautiful place. I didn't even know that there were some reefers up there, which that's kind of cool to learn. But I will look them up.
Cool. Any other questions for Sonny? Please throw them in the chat. Dave, back to your coral snow. So you do coral snow once a week, regardless of water change.
I do it once a week, like clockwork. Every Saturday, I'll dose it in the system. And like I said, just to keep the snails at bay and to keep the water clear. And
Do you turn skimmer off?
yeah, so I'll turn the main system pump off. I'll leave all the flow on in the system, so the MP40s will stay on. Wait about 30 minutes, and then I'll turn everything back on. Typically, I'll have to swap out the filter socks a couple hours after because they're going to pick up a lot of things in there.
Okay. Do you add Zeobac to it or anything at the same time or not?
I do add. Yep, I will add
You do?
bacteria to it. I've played around in the past with adding different things depending on where I feel I need that week in the system. I've added the Zeo Food Plus. I've even added Celcon, which is fatty. Was it lipids with some vitamin C in there? I've kind of messed around with that in the past. I noticed that really helped with the Zoes, different LPS. They really like it.
Really? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you let that ferment before you dose it, or do you kind of mix it up and then just put it straight in?
Yeah, I'll let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll go ahead and dump it into the system.
Interesting.
Where'd you get that from, Josh?
That was
In this country.
I think it was either an eBay or an Amazon purchase. And as Sonny has just said, it is fatty acids.
Is it? Yep.
Have you got any frustrations with Derby, Sonny? Anything that you think you wish it was better, or you can't get hold of certain equipment, maybe, or anything that you
Can't really think of many frustrations, things I can get a hold of. We've got a lot of aquarium shops near me, so I don't have to worry about that so much. The equipment here in America is pretty easy to get. Most of the stuff I can get it overnight.
Yeah.
Things will be shipped in. I kind of wish that, like I said, people would, focus on the hobby itself, more on the basics. You see a lot of, especially on the forums, which is probably why I'm not so much on the forums. I try to jump on once in a while and try to correct some people on certain things, but there's a lot of peddling of products and different. I mean, you guys be amazed how many, people reach out. I'm sure they reach out to you, Josh, as well on some of this stuff where they're trying to, hey, try my product, do this, try that. Some big manufacturers too. I won't name them, but I'm like, no, I use Tropic Marine for my stuff. I'm not even sponsored by them. But I've had other larger companies come in and they say, hey, we'll give you everything, all the chemicals, all the stuff. And these are big name, competitors of Tropic Marine. And I'm like, no, what works for me works for me.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty selective with the sponsors and what they send over. I was using the Radions and MP40s for, years before they reached out to me and started sponsoring my systems. So yeah, I would just don't get so much into the potions, into all the things, all the magic pills out there. That's probably my biggest frustration.
I would, yeah, you're totally right. I've had plenty of people reach out, and I've been guilty of not necessarily falling into the trap, but being open-minded and going, yeah, I'll give it a try. Being a newer reefer, I'll give it a try, see how it goes. And I probably have never given things the time of day to really have an effect. And that's why I've sort of gone backwards a little bit now, and I'm literally dosing like phyto and zooplankton. They're the two things that I've got no fish at the minute, so there's no real bio load in terms of fish. So they're two things that are readily available in the ocean, phyto and zooplankton. They're being dosed alongside the Tropic Marine Factor Balance. That's it. That's all that's going in now. And I have to say that the corals are probably looking better now than they have been for a long time. So it does go to show that, yeah, you can be drawn in by the potions and the different additives, but you
Yeah.
go back to basics, like you're really keen on pushing, and you do tend to get some really, really fantastic results, and fairly quickly as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. On the I don't on the phyto and zooplankton, I never really got on that train, just because of my heavy. I believe that's because of my heavy bio loads. I know in your case, yeah, it definitely makes sense. Because you have to add some nutrition into the system. But if you got plenty of fish, you really don't have to mess with the phyto and the zooplankton. At least that's my thoughts on it.
What do you feed your fish on it? Just incidentally, what do you feed them?
Formula One flakes and Spectrum pellets.
So nothing frozen then?
I do the
Understood.
frozen mysis shrimp, but that's strictly for my copper band butterfly. If he wasn't in
Right.
there, I'd stick with the flakes.
Interesting. Very interesting. Is there anything you'd like to ask us, Brit? It's not that we've got nowhere near the scale of access to corals and shops as you guys have. Anything you'd like to ask us over here in the UK?
You guys got some decent systems set up out there. I guess I'd have to take a look deeper into, your availability, the different customers.
Yeah.
I know here in the U.S., like I said, it's really easy to get corals in certain areas. Even if you order them online, there's probably 1,000 different vendors that'll get you stuff. I can order them, in the afternoon and have them here at my house tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. On the first flight over. How hard is it for you guys to achieve that or get that out there?
It's a lot harder than it was. When I started in the hobby, it was just pre-COVID, and it was pre-Brexit. So things were a lot more readily available. We could get things from Europe. And for me, locally in my area anyway, there were a lot more shops. I'm down to one shop now in pretty much most of the Northeast. So they have the monopoly on what's available to us if they choose to have it. Obviously, we've got Christian who does sell online. But again, it's like you're saying, you've got plenty of vendors. You got thousands of vendors online that can ship to you next day. We are very thin on the ground, shall we say, in terms of what is available to us over here. Even equipment wise, that you've got a lot of manufacturers, a lot of availability in the US. Things are starting to go back up again now. I think things are starting to pick up in that we have a lot more equipment. It's starting to become more available. There's a lot more suppliers starting to reach back out and come back to the UK. But it has been, I'd say, quite a tough few years for the hobby, and there's been a noticeable decline, I think, in terms of the volume of people that are in the hobby. But the fact that we've got things like Aqua H just started the show that we've had on the weekend, it does show that we're moving back in the right direction ever so slowly. So, hopefully we are going to be going in the right direction. But it is definitely been a lot tougher than potentially other areas of the world in terms of supply.
Well, if you wanted a channel that was full of technical issues, then this was the right one this morning. It's back. Can you hear us all right, Sonny?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Go.
We're good.
All right, can you guys see me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good deal.
I'll let you summarize what you just said, Josh, because you might not have heard that.
Did you miss any of that, Sonny? Or
No, I heard that concerning the corals and your availability and the equipment, on especially with the monopoly that your one shop has out there.
Yep.
Crazy. It's
Yeah.
we've not got
We asked Sam this a couple of weeks ago when Sam Parker came on about obviously Australia. Now I know obviously it's not on your doorstep, but what's the score with you guys in terms of travelling out and going into the ocean? Are you allowed to pick anything up? Do people do it? Water, rock, corals, anything?
So I'm in Michigan, so I'm surrounded by the Great Lakes. So we have a lot of water. I mean, they're fresh water. I mean, they look like the ocean. When you go out on the beach and you look out there, I mean, if you were to drop there, you would think it's an ocean, just how massive it is. But some guys in Florida probably go down there and pick, but I believe there's a lot of laws that you're not allowed to grab anything out of the water down there. It wouldn't be a bad idea. I know I get jealous of some of the guys in Australia and even some of the guys in Florida. If they go out and do their water changes, they can go collect the water from the ocean. If you find a decent spot where there's no waste or pollution, I mean, I think that's kind of cool. That definitely one perk to living down there. But yeah, when it comes to the rocks and the corals, I don't believe you can pull anything out of there. What is nice when you're pulling things out, or sorry, not when you're. Well, can you guys see me?
No,
you're gonna get. Oh, you're back. There you go.
I'm back. Sorry, guys. Okay. So we were talking about pulling about the areas and the corals. No, there's nothing really in my area that I can pull out.
Right, okay. But you've got a massive area of shops, or network of shops, should I say, around you that you can, yeah, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. What I was going to mention is the live rock portion of it. Down in Florida, there are a couple suppliers down there. And
Right.
if I am trying to get live rock, it won't be strictly, from Fiji. It'll be down from Florida, where they are collecting and growing it down there. So
They're more putting it, but I think are they right? Am I right in saying they're putting dead rock in the ocean and sort of almost farming it? They're not taking live rock as such. They're putting dead rock in, allowing it to become live, and then bringing it back out again.
correct. Yeah, they are doing that, but the quality of the rock, I think, is on par, and in some cases better than the stuff that comes out of Fiji, just because it's coming directly from Florida. I'm not having to wait 2 days for it to come in.
Yeah.
It's alive when I get it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, something that we don't have the luxury of over here, with it being a completely different climate. I know that you were saying about collecting water there. For the Aussies especially, we do have people, and I think there is a fairly decent sized network in this country where people have mapped clean areas to collect water, but whether or not it's containing the sort of same bacterial strains, whether or not it's having the same positive effect that the Florida, like waters from Florida, Australia, the warmer climates have, is another thing. I'm unsure. But you do see a lot of successful tanks that are using natural seawater in this country, which is nice to see.
Yes. So anybody's got any more questions for Sonny, please drop them in the chat, because we're going to wrap up shortly. You're not missing out on much in the UK, Sonny, at the minute. We are trying to we are trying to advance. There is a couple of decent shops speckled up and down the country. Hopefully there will be more over the next few years, as again we try and get the hobby back to what it was when I first get back into it. I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but yeah, we in the UK, there's a bit of a push at the minute in terms of getting the social aspect, meeting. I don't know what it's like with you, but a lot of reefers need that, don't need, but enjoy that social interaction aspect of it quite a lot. I'm a big advocate of that. It's what kept me in the hobby and got me in the hobby, 12, 15 years ago, whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, do you have LFSs that you'll go in there for something and end up spending 2-3 hours in, or is that not how it works over there?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of everywhere, right? You go into a local fish store, and 2-3 hours later, you come out spending way more than you thought you were going to spend when you're in there, especially when it comes to money. So yeah, that's kind of, I'm sure that's universal around the world. And yeah, you do run into some interesting people. I think in my case, I am going to try to attend some of these shows eventually and start going out and seeing a few different things. So that's kind of on my schedule. I just got to find the time to do so. I would like to go out and, just kind of talk and meet the people that I talk to online. There's a lot of, reefers on Instagram or on the forums that do go to these big shows here, whether it's Florida or California or New York. That'll be cool. So I think that's one thing for me in 2025 that I'm going to try to focus on, is just trying to get more involved with the people in the hobby.
And is it very competitive over there in terms of hobbyists? Is it my tank's better than your tank? Is there any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, America in general, Americans are really competitive with each other on all things. I know I'm extremely competitive. Everything, man. I mean, that's just how I am in life. I'm just always trying to, push myself a little further. And, I'm getting older in that aspect. So I'm trying to slow down a bit when it comes to that, because, you really can't operate at that level forever. Just wear and tear on there. But yeah, there are a lot of people who are competitive when it comes to the reefing aspect in their systems. And, like I said, I'm kind of ignorant to how things are operating in the UK. And you're saying, you guys are having a lot of issues, especially after Brexit. But here on our end, it seems like the hobby's just getting bigger and bigger here. Just there's more and more shows popping up. You're seeing more and more vendors. It's a bit wild. It's been growing rapidly here.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think over here it's a lot to do with supply and kind of cost of living crisis, things like that, because energy has gone through the roof. The reef tanks are luxury. Many just can't afford these days, So hopefully as the prices come down, we get more people into it, the lower density of shops. Like Tom was saying, this is why Tom's especially really focused on creating this kind of community of reefers that get together. So we've been meeting up quite regularly. There's a big group of us. Hopefully that group grows. Yeah. But it's really making the hobby a lot more fun, right?
Well, that's kind of fun. I guess I guess a question I'd have to ask is, what are your coral prices like out there? I know here relatively you can get it relatively cheap especially when it comes to local hobbyists. I know with my main system here, there's no coral in there that costed me more than, on average, 20 to 30 bucks a frag. But a lot of it is from local hobbyists. And there's even, certain tanks with the old school corals where you'll go into a local fish store and they'll have a whole tank that's, hey, it's a $20 section. It's your Bali green slimers, your digis, and so on. I guess, what are your prices like out there?
I mean, for me, certainly, because I'm selling corals, we've entry level, so we've got your kind of old school things like your Bali slimers and bits and bobs like that, sort of 35 quid a frag, 35 a frag.
Yeah.
And then kind of got the more sought after rarer pieces, right? So
yep.
For me, it's certainly in terms of supply and demand, and that would dictate the price.
Yeah.
Obviously a big flashy LPS, they're going for a lot, big money. I'm sure
yep.
it's the same dates, right? So I guess it depends what kind of tank you're looking for, right? But you can get anything, really for the prices that you want to pay.
Okay.
The quality's there, I don't know. But, if you're getting it out of a friend's tank or, a local reefer's tank, it's going to be okay, right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if you. I tend to trust the shops a little more. But, if it's somebody I know locally who's got a decent system and I know they have quality, then yeah, I'm more apt to get a coral from them. But for the most part, I will usually stick to the shops just because of there are a lot of pests out there and a lot of issues, and you don't want to wipe out your entire system for a cheap coral.
Go on. So have you ever travelled far after a colony or a frag? What's the furthest you've gone for something? I suppose you can get shipped to you. I know that over there you've probably got better temperatures than we have, but
yeah, never really traveled too far for it. I've traveled far for aquariums. There's a really nice builder, Miracles, up in Toronto, which is about 4 hours away, but that's about the furthest I've traveled for something reef related.
Interesting. Go on, Chris. Sorry.
Oh, it's gone, mate. It's gone.
Okay.
I was going to say, because there's quite a lot of controversy in quarantining corals here. There's various coral sellers who think that pests are symbiotes and that they only come out of coral if you haven't got your trace elements right, which I think is BS, really. Do you think in the States there's a lot of focus from the shops to make sure their corals are clean?
I think it just comes down to the suppliers. I don't know if my local fish store, the one I frequent, I don't really see them putting things so much in the quarantine. They will, quarantine their fish. Their systems are set up with copper for that aspect. With the corals, they have separate systems that don't have copper, of course. But a lot of their systems, too, from what I've noticed is, and maybe it's true for other local fish stores out here, a lot of it's what hobbyists are bringing in. So they'll have a network of local hobbyists who are growing corals like myself, who are trusted, and they're getting most of their collection from that. They're not really importing as much anymore these days, just because there's so many corals just available locally.
Cool.
Yeah, we see a lot of people bringing corals in just to, get money for salt and things and bits and bobs like that. It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, we're approaching. Well, we've gone over the tour mark. I'm going to wrap it up now. Unless there's anything, Josh, Christian, you want to ask Sonny while we've got him on. Sonny, anything you want to ask us before we wrap up? Thank you ever so much. I'm sorry that we've been your alarm clock this morning on a Sunday morning.
Oh no, I was. Yeah, that was my fault. I guess I should have Googled UK time instead of GMT time.
Not me daft. You've been an absolute diamond and a gent for coming on. Apologies for the technical hiccups, such as life over here in the UK. What's the plans for the rest of the weekend? Anything today? Taking the kids out? Anything? Family time?
Yeah, kind of hanging out with the family. A few odds and ends chores out here that I've got to get done. I've got a busy work week ahead, busy whole work month. So yeah.
Well, good luck with the tank. It'd be great to keep in touch with you if possible.
Yeah.
We'd like to discuss obviously see your new tank system. Any ideas when you're thinking of doing it?
Oh, it might be next spring if I end up. Like I said, the system is running a lot longer than I've ever had a system run. So yeah, it just depends on the situation, on the housing and whatnot. I mean, you guys probably heard, the housing out here is just a little insane right now. Nobody's really moving around because of the interest rates and just the housing prices have swelled. I mean, the 2-3 years they've doubled. It's insanity. Wow. So yeah, I've got to figure that piece out. But yeah.
Cool. I always like to ask this question because I've got a very tolerable partner with the hobby. How is that received in terms of multiple fish tanks, money spent on the hobby?
She's good.
Yeah.
No issues there. She supports my hobby, supports everything I do with it. So no problems at all.
Well, how much interest in the hobby has she got? Do we know names of corals, or is it blue one, green one, red one?
I don't think she even looks at it.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Good. Right then. Yeah. Thank you ever so much, everybody, for tuning in, and thanks again, Sonny, for joining us this Sunday morning. Yep. It's been a good one. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and yes, we will see you all next Sunday. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
A lot of fun.
Cheers, Sonny.